to welcome everybody out here tonight on this, our regular board meeting on this September 13th, 2016. We do have a quorum here present. We have Trustee Clayton, Trustee Coker, myself, Trustee Benyon, Trustee Bustos. Here in attendance also we have our Superintendent, Dr. Holmes. We have our Student Board Liaison, or student representative for the first few months, Principal Dallas O'Carey, Dr. Walter Hunt. We also have with us our board clerk, Ms. Amanda Chance, our interim finance manager, Ms. Val Siemens, and soon to be Mr. Blackman should be joining us shortly. For those who would like it, we also have Ms. Olga Masa Santos here in the back for any Spanish interpretation. Por favor, si alguien necesita interpretación a español, por favor, véase a Olga Masa Santos. Está por ahí, por detrás. If you would please stand with me and join me in pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. At this time, I'll go ahead and ask if there's any additions, corrections, modifications, or substitutions to the current agenda. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and continue on and turn the time over to Dr. Holmes for our accolades.
Good evening. We have two accolades tonight. The first one is for Brandy Koshow, or Koshow, if I get her name pronounced right. She's a PE teacher at Wood River Middle School, and I don't believe she was able to be here tonight. This letter is actually written to Brandy, so just understand that context when I'm reading it. It says, I am pleased to inform you that you have been selected as the 2016 SHAPE Idaho Middle School Physical Educator of the Year. Congratulations. You were selected from a... Yes, applaud for her. We'll play her the tape. You were selected from a quality pool of applicants to represent outstanding physical education teachers across Idaho. As Idaho's award winner, your application will be submitted to the Northwest District AHPERD level. I'm not sure what that stands for, but if you're selected as a district winner, your application will be forwarded to the national competition. Congratulations once again on this honor. It is a wonderful acknowledgement of your outstanding teaching career and your many efforts on behalf of your students and community. Please do not hesitate to contact me if you have any further questions. Sincerely, Tyler Johnson, Professor, Department of Kinesiology, Boise State University. So that is wonderful to have her as one of our wonderful teachers working with our students. Our second accolade tonight, I think we have some representatives here. Deanne Campbell. There you are, you're hiding. Jenny Emery Davidson. She's hiding too. And Krista Felton. I can see Krista through the head, so I knew she was back there. These are representatives of the Deanne Campbell and Jenny are from the Community Library, and Krista is from the Hunger Coalition. Dear Blaine County School District trustees, this letter is to recognize the Hunger Coalition and Community Library for the incredible support provided to the children in Blaine County. This summer, lunches were once again provided to children in Blaine County in need of nourishing meals. In addition to the traditional lunch in the park served at the Balmoral Park Playfield, children from north of Ketchum to Cary were provided with summer food. The Hunger Coalition and Community Library partnered to secure grant funding and then launch Bloom. Have you seen the bright colored Bloom trailer running around town or the county? Bloom provided children with nutritious lunches and opportunities to check out books from the community library. The Bloom truck and trailer helped students stay nourished and engaged in literacy throughout the summer while schools were closed. This mobile lunch and library provided services to children who live on the outskirts of our community. In the words of Naomi Spence, Associate Director of the Hunger Coalition, it's time to bring these services to the kids who need it most. According to the Hunger Coalition, Bloom provided library cards to 178 children, checked out over 1,500 books, served over 2,000 lunches to 144 children, and traveled 2,320 miles during the summer of 2016 as it visited 2 locations each day, 5 days a week. The Blaine County School District leadership gratefully acknowledges the support these 2 community organizations provided Blaine County children during the summer. We appreciate their partnership in ensuring Blaine County children have the nurturing to become adults that contribute positively to their community and the world. So thank you for nourishing our kids' bellies and minds over the summer. Thank you so much.
All right, we'll go ahead and jump right into our first section of public comment. And we will start off in the order that they were received. And we'll start with Mr. Glenn Lindsley.
Good evening. Glenn Lindsley, 1321 Creekside Drive here in Haley, Zone 2, Wood River High School mathematics teacher. Dear trustees, thank you for your service to our community. Next week you will appoint a 5th person to join you in your work on our school board. I hope you strongly consider Irene Healy, a longtime member of our community and a teacher in our school for 30 years. Irene has dedicated her adult lifetime to making our schools a better place for students to learn and grow. Speak to any former student or colleague and they will certainly talk about what an extraordinary person she is. Irene is intelligent, hardworking, considerate, and an outstanding listener. She is a critical thinker who will question and carefully evaluate all sides of an issue before making any decision. She can be trusted to respect different points of view and will get the work done listening to all the constituents. Her volunteer work in neighboring schools and in our schools directly with children and on committees since her retirement demonstrates that she continues to be dedicated to our children and school staff. Irene is an independent thinker. She has no agenda coming onto the board other than wanting the best for our students. She will build trust and teamwork at a district level just as she did in the classroom. She has proven that she can work with district and building administrators during her time as an employee and retiree. Her ability and desire to work together for the common good will be a huge asset for our schools and our community. Again, thank you for your time.
Next up, Joan Davies.
Good evening. Thank you. I'm Joan Davies, a longtime resident of Blaine County and reside at 210 North 3rd Avenue here in Haley, Idaho, and the mother of 3 Wood River High School graduates. I wish to thank and support Irene Healy for the Zone 3 and the Zone 3 resident as a candidate of choice to fill the vacant position. The reasons for the choice are many. Irene, a longtime resident who knows and understands the space that she has called home for over 30 years. She also has qualifications that validate interest in students and providing the atmosphere for their learning. As a distinguished chemistry and physics teacher of Wood River High School, she has been given the opportunity to gain insight into the many operational levels of the school by the time spent living in the teaching experience. She has observed the working of all aspects of the districts, from the custodians, operation, administrative staff, guidance, counselors, special needs, school teachers, principals, superintendents. Her experience covers the whole system. She has the ability to listen and to understand issues presented to her. She asks appropriate questions and works on constructive solutions to complex and difficult problems. Her ability to communicate with all parties in an intelligent and helpful way helps the world collaborate and come to positive outcomes for the greater majority. Irene is bright, talented, dedicated to education, interested in serving, and we all should be appreciative of her willingness to serve the school district and maintain the quality education that Blaine County citizens have experienced in the past and will expect in the future. Irene is a highly skilled individual, can get the job done. And as I have said before, I will enthusiastically endorse her. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Lynn Flickinger.
I'm Lynn Flickinger, 151 Blue Grouse Lane in Ketchum. I was a school board trustee for 9 years, and I was chairman for 5. And I'm here tonight to encourage you to get a job done. It's time to end the drama and the division on the board and to go back to working for the children of Blaine County. You have interviews on the 20th, and the Zone 3 vacancy needs to be filled. You have a willing and very capable candidate in Irene Healy, and it's time to put her to work. Decisions need to be made, and the work of the trustees must get back on track in a timely fashion. There should be no excuses this time. Irene Healy knows education inside out and backwards, as you've already heard. The woman is brilliant. She's even-keeled, thoughtful. She's an analytical, positive leader with both collaborative skills and negotiation skills. She knows how to do her homework, and she knows how to come to the table prepared. She ponders a variety of solutions. She's able to bring people together. She makes decisions for the good of our students and our taxpayers as well. She understands education. She understands finance. She understands budgeting. She has worked with all kinds of people in her career. She brings about good results. For over 30 years, Irene has known our district. She truly does understand what it is to be a good trustee. I highly encourage you to appoint Irene Healy on the 20th. Get back to working for the best of our children and to make our school district the best that it can be. Thank you for your time.
Next up, Jamie Stymack.
My name is Jamie Stymack. I live in Zone 2, and I'm here to make a comment in enthusiastic support of Irene Healy for our vacant school board position. I started teaching with Irene at Wood River High School in 1989. She held leadership positions in our school and the district throughout the time that I taught with her, and was known for being incredibly well prepared, working and communicating with all involved, and for gathering all information and seeking various viewpoints before forming opinions. I watched her work with numerous principals and superintendents over the years. She developed quality working relationships with all of them, along with shared mutual respect, while at the same time maintaining complete independence and autonomy. If you know Irene, you know that she will stand up for what she believes in and work diligently to achieve any goal that she sets. I can't comment about Irene's career in education without bringing up what I believe to be her greatest strength: her relationships in the classroom with students. She had that ability to let students know how much she cared, and then to push them to high levels of learning. To this day, if I'm ever out and about in the valley with her, we are usually stopped by former students of hers whom she has kept in touch with over the years. Irene will use this natural understanding of the true nature of how education works and why it exists as a school board member. Without conscious thought, she will put students first throughout all work she does and in every decision she makes. It is Irene's willingness to put in the time, commitment to gathering the facts, ability to work with everyone at the table, her independent voice, and commitment to the children of our valley that I believe will be an invaluable asset on arguably one of the most important groups of people that Blaine County School District has, our school board. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up will be Lyman Drake reading on behalf of Matt Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm reading a letter from Matt Phillips, a chemistry teacher at Wood River High School at 90 East Fork Road, Haley. To the Board of Trustees, I wish to recognize a person who is dedicated to making a difference in our school community, namely Irene Healy. I have known Irene since 2005 when I was completing my Idaho teaching credential and needed to undertake the student-teacher portion to meet state requirements. Upon visiting her classroom, the first thing I noticed was her incredible organization. Secondly, I noticed the respect that both students and teachers paid to this veteran teacher. After Irene agreed to work with me, I spent a trimester watching, listening, and learning from one of the district's finest teachers. What the board needs to know is this: Irene Healy commands the respect of virtually every teacher and administrator in the district that has ever worked with her. She also has an excellent reputation with parents and community members who know her. She held herself to the highest standards, and in so doing, she was always teaching at her A game. She raised the standards and expectations of her students and colleagues. If a student needed help, she was there morning, noon, or night. If a colleague needed help, she was there. She served the high school and the district by sitting on many committees and attending countless meetings. She was a great listener, never missing a significant detail, and she would always find the unspoken connections. In addition, because she was a scientist first and foremost, she wanted to see the data that supported any proposed course of action. She is a data-driven leader who always took the facts into account regardless of the emotional aspects of a decision. She never dismissed what the data showed or what people said in a meeting, and she always stood by what was best for students, teachers, and the school. She could summarize, make correlations, and get to the bottom line like no one I have ever met. Most of all, Irene was never divisive. She was a collaborator and a unifier. At a time when the board is so visibly divided, a unifying voice of reason is what we need. In this district, real respect is earned. Irene spent years building a foundation of trust and relationships by being there for students and colleagues when they most needed someone with integrity, honesty, and steadfastness. Irene Healy has a 30-year track record of doing what is best for the students in the district. I urge you to appoint her to the open board seat as soon as possible. Sincerely, Matt Phillips, Wood River High School Science Department Chair.
All right, and then next up, Lyman Drake speaking on behalf of himself.
On behalf of myself, I reside at 450 North Hewlin Way in Blaine County. Mr. Chairman, I came tonight expecting to see an agenda item for consideration of the board's code of ethics. I'm dismayed to discover its absence. Since your July meeting, I've been waiting in vain for the announcement of a board governance workshop intended to prepare and inform tonight's discussion of the code of ethics. School boards, public boards, and nonprofit boards all over the country manage to adopt codes of ethics to set guidelines for their members. But this board appears unable to do so. Mr. Chairman, I take this as further evidence that your Board of Trustees is deeply divided into entrenched factions that are having great difficulty working together to accomplish the essential business of the district. This dysfunctional situation is damaging to staff morale. It is harming the board's and the district's reputations in the community, and worst of all, it is hurting our students. The bad vibes that emanate from this room undermine our teachers' efforts to bring out the best in the children under their care. In short, the dysfunction at the board level is having harmful repercussions in the schools and in the community. This brings distress and disappointment to me and to many other members of our community. We expect better of you. Evidence from around the country shows that divided boards, no matter how noble the intentions of their individual members, are much less effective in promoting the educational success of their students than boards that work in a spirit of collaboration and compromise. Stonewalling does not produce better outcomes. That is why, as a first step to restoring board credibility, I most strongly urge you to act at your meeting next week to appoint a 5th trustee to fill the Zone 3 vacancy. You have a candidate with the qualities and stature to command the respect of the entire community. Any school district in America would be grateful to have a trustee of Irene Healy's caliber. Obstructing her appointment now will only bring discredit on this board and the dissenting trustees, and it is unlikely to change the final outcome if the matter goes to the county commission. This community will breathe a huge sigh of relief if you show the wisdom and the statesmanship to appoint Irene Healy next week so that the board can get on with the public's business. I've heard trustees in this room declare that 300 signers to a petition constitute a powerful directive from the public. So what should we make of the 500 declared supporters for Irene Healy? Is it not fair to conclude that the community has spoken? Those of you who so often stress the importance of listening to and carrying out the will of the community, I plead with you to look beyond your specific personal preferences and act in the public interest. This community wants a functioning board without further delay. Please give it to us.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. The last one that we have received will be Chet Olson.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to address the board. My name is Chet Olson. I live at 1220 Creekside Drive, Haley, Idaho. I'm a teacher in the district, but more importantly, I'm a parent of 3 awesome children attending school in the district. I'm here tonight representing what I feel is their best interest. As you discuss a new board member for Zone 3, I highly encourage you to appoint Irene Healy. I had the opportunity to work with Irene when I was a new teacher in the district. Although we didn't cross paths much, I couldn't help but respect her well thought out perspective, insight, and leadership. These are attributes she will no doubt bring to the school board. It would be difficult to find someone more educated on issues surrounding education, our schools, and our community as Irene. Each of you as school board members have a real opportunity to add a highly qualified individual to assist you in providing a world-class education for each of our children. I know without a doubt Irene is the person for the job, and I encourage you to appoint her to join you on the board. Thank you.
Thank you for the public comment, and we will proceed with the agenda and turn the time over to Dr. Holmes for the superintendent report.
Okay, thank you. And continuing to focus on examples in our district of when students are being inspired, engaged, educated, or empowered, I reached out to our art teacher at Wood River High School, Betty Roger Irvin, and asked her if she had a student who might want to share with us about AP art. Because we had just gotten the results and what happened last year, which were phenomenal. And if I understand right, usually students work 2 years on developing their portfolio. It is so rigorous. And so she recommended Emily Stone. So we're very excited tonight to have Emily and Ms. Irvin here to share with us a little bit about AP art, what's involved in putting together a portfolio, and some examples. So come on up and show us your stuff.
Oh, I just brought a chair. Sorry.
Okay, hi, I'm Betty Irvin. Can you hear me okay? And I've been teaching at Wood River High School since 2001. And I started with the AP program this will be my 5th or 6th year into the program. We started with about 7 students, of which 4 actually submitted their portfolio. And this year we have 20 students that are in the program, 10 that are in the pre-AP, which is the first year of the AP process, and then the second year I have 10 students who will also be submitting portfolios this year. As Ms. Gwen Carroll told us that when she asked me this summer to bring this to the board and come up with a student that would best represent the program, hands down, Emily Stone was my go-to gal. She took the pre-AP art as a sophomore and then finished up as a junior with the AP studio art. Last year, she submitted her portfolio. She earned a 5 on her portfolio, which is like any AP class, it's the highest score that you can get. It is a challenging class to, I think, teach, and then also for the students as well. There is no set curriculum, there's no guidebook, there's no end-of-year course exam that you take, and it's primarily, I'm guiding the students, but it's really up to the students also to put in a lot of time, effort, and hone their skills and talent to put a portfolio together, which is what they're basically scored on. So Emily's going to talk to you about the 3 different types, portions of the portfolio. There's a breadth section, a concentration section, and then a quality section, of which you have up to 24 pieces for submitting for in front of the College Board. So I'm going to let Emily tell you.
Okay. Oh my goodness. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Okay, so this year I'm a senior at Wood River High School. I have been in the school district since kindergarten, and I will have taken 11 AP courses by the time that I graduate, and AP Studio Art is by far the hardest course that I've taken. And I started it sophomore year, which is when everyone takes their first AP course, if they're going to take it, which is AP US History, which is like really gnarly. And AP Studio Art was way more challenging, but also way more rewarding. So the class, like she said, it was a really small group of kids last year. We didn't even have a period for the class, so we were divided amongst different periods, which I think was really hard for Miss Irvin, because we had to organize like critiques over the weekends when we could look at each other's artwork and like give constructive feedback, which is a really valuable thing to have learned, and it's helped me in my other English classes because I can give better feedback on essays without necessarily hurting the people that I'm giving feedback to, which is very nice. Okay, so the first portion of the portfolio is the breadth portion. Do you want to say something about it?
Yeah, the breadth portion, I get the students really to focus on honing their skills, working in a variety of different media, and in a variety of different genres. So there's 12 pieces that are done in this portion of the portfolio. All of their work, by the way, is photographed. They photograph the artwork. We put it into a Dropbox format, and it goes to the College Board in a digital format for this portion of the portfolio.
Yeah. So this portion was probably my least favorite portion because I really like focusing on painting like people and things that are really realistic. So I was really pushed by Miss Irvin to paint things that were kind of out of my comfort zone. So this is the portfolio that I submitted to College Board. My first piece was made with oil pastel, and I was trying to capture one of the elements of design, and that was movement. And I personally didn't like this one too much, but I was challenged, and it really pushed me to look at the landscapes differently and like just the movement in the world differently. My second breadth piece is an acrylic piece. It's about like that big-ish. I don't know what that size is. And it's a pun of like thunder clapping and sheet lightning. It's pretty cool. I really liked this piece. It was like surrealism, which is interesting to try and come up with ideas for. This one, I was trying to use a more like Dr. Seuss kind of style to talk about the progression of emotion, and yeah, I liked it. It's watercolor. Oh, awesome. It's watercolor, which was hard for me to work in, and definitely challenged me to look at things differently, and I ended up using some watercolor and some watercolor styles later on in my portfolio. This was one of the first pieces I did where I first fell in love with like painting and drawing glass. This was colored pencil and black paper. This piece was looking at a combination of different kinds of artworks, which I combined Japanese style, like landscapes, and then a cityscape to kind of juxtapose how these two different worlds kind of combine in the city of Seattle. And actually, I had to ask one of the other students, who all of the students in this class are totally different, which is really interesting because you can get really good feedback from a bunch of different perspectives. So I had someone teach me how to like write in graffiti-ish, kind of. And so I wrote Seattle in graffiti on there, and it kind of looks sort of like characters, which, I don't know, I thought it turned out pretty cool. This was a digital piece that I did of my sister using Photoshop, which you can paint in. And so I had a tablet and worked really hard on this piece. This is my sister. And I decided that digital paintings were not my thing. But I did like doing this piece. This was one of the very first ones that I did in Miss Irvin's class. And it was a self-portrait. I was supposed to use just normal pencils and like work on trying to have those really dark values and really light values. But also I wanted the simplicity of the open space and the white space in the background. This piece, which I actually brought with me right here, it looks the same, but it's real, yeah. This one, I didn't want to do a still life piece, but Irv kept pushing me to do it. And after I had done it, which it took me a few days, I realized how much fun it actually is to like work on a bigger scale, which I hadn't done before, and work more in acrylic paint, which I had kind of disliked at the beginning of the year. And then the whole idea of doing still life and working with reflections was really new to me. And so I had no idea that this could like turn out anything like this. And I really like this piece. Yeah, that's it. This piece is a landscape of a lake. It's called Temple Lake. It's in Wind River Range, but that doesn't matter. I was working on using that watercolor texture that I had used in that earlier piece, the Dr. Susie one, and trying to figure out how to texturize rocks and stuff. So this one was really cool. But I also didn't like getting started on this piece because I didn't know quite where to start. This one is tempera paint, which is different from acrylic because it's water-based instead of plastic-based. And I was working on trying a different style of painting with like larger brush strokes, which I also did in the glass piece. And it's a boat. And then this one, I wanted to do this one, and then about like 20 minutes into it, I really didn't want to do it. I actually started on a piece that was like that big, a piece of paper for this picture. It was like this big, and it was a huge mistake. And Ms. Irvin pointed it out before I got too far, which was really nice. This was the longest, or this piece took me the longest out of all of them. And then I spilled water on it, and it is washable marker, so it's smeared. And so it's just in a drawer now, smeared, and it's sad. Yeah. This one is very different from my other ones. I created a template and cut out the letter Y, and then I rearranged all of the same kind of things in the background and made a variety of collages, and then made a digital collage of the collages. And I really like it. And then there's the concentration portion, which is the second portion of the piece. It also consists of 12 pieces that you're making, but you have to follow a specific theme that you come up with, and then you write about that as well in another part of like what you submit. And you kind of want your pieces to show a similar idea. Is there anything else? Yeah, okay. So for my concentration, I was trying to explore how our environment impacts who we are and who we become. So this first piece is about adventuring. I actually used my sister as a model for the picture. And I had started with a picture of a road that I really didn't like and abandoned for like 3 months. And it was sitting at the front of the classroom. Ms. Irvin did not like that very much. So she pressured me to get started on it again, which I probably wouldn't have done if I was just trying to push myself. And I ended up getting one of my favorite pieces. I actually donated this to a fundraiser, and it sold for, I don't know, like more than $100. And that was awesome. This piece is fairly self-explanatory. It's just about like how something can impact us so much that we don't feel whole anymore. This piece was inspired by some of my friends at the high school who are struggling a little bit more about just like the fake face you put on around other people. And this is where I started getting into that acrylic on canvas, and I started loving it. This one is a colored pencil piece that I did of my cousin, Courtney Ballard. She's now in college, and just showing how her home, Blaine County, shaped who she's become. This piece is about how music impacts us and how making music impacts the world around us. And I really like this piece. I actually used Amy Cantrell, who's a beautiful violinist at the high school, as a model, and worked on using pen and ink. And then this was actually on a clear sheet of paper, or like plastic. It was like a plastic paper. And so I drew on one side of it and then painted on the other side. So all the color and the white background is on the other side, which is really cool and kind of weird. This piece is of my uncle, who spent the year in a blue zone, which is what this is called, which, for those of you who don't know, a blue zone is like one of the places, there are like, I don't know how many, on Earth, where people, the average like lifespan is like 100 years or something. It's crazy. So it's like people who live in this really happy, free environment where they have close family connections. And so I was trying to capture that in this picture. This one is about like having a fresh start at the beginning of a school year, or not school year,
Calendar year.
Yeah. This one has a reference to those of you who like hike. It's on Carbonate. There's like graffiti that says "Think Good Thoughts." So I tried to bring that into my piece without like copying it, and then I painted this portrait onto a sheet of plastic and then put that on top of this big piece of wood. This one, I was trying to capture how a lot of school systems in this day and age underutilize the right brain, and how we need to be using creativity in our school systems more. And I mean, this class is a great example of like why. And so that's what that piece is, yeah. This piece is about the pressures of life just around us, pretty much, yeah. And this piece I really liked. It's about the difference between those who try and shape who they are to get more people to like them, and how more people tend to like the people who are fake. And for like all of these pieces, I used my classmates as models and like reference photos, and that was really interesting. And then I think this is my last one, but this is a picture of like how using our phones too much can kind of make the world around us fade and make ourselves fade as well, as we become less social. And not that being social is important, but it's important to like have time to think about things, and I think that that is taken away from us when we're spending too much time on our phones and Netflix. So the next portion, which is the final portion, is the quality portion, which you like pick out 5 of your favorite pieces. They have to be under 18 by 24 inches, and then you mail them in to College Board. And they like lay them out on all these tables in this giant room, at least as I picture it. And these random people walk around and just like put votes on them for like how much they're worth. I don't know how realistic that is, but I think that's kind of how it works. So I sent in this piece because I liked the style, and I liked how it showed a different kind of work that I could also kind of pull off. I also sent in the hands clapping piece. And I also sent in this one on social media, and I sent in this one on stresses around us, and this one, oh my goodness, on the school system. And I got a 5. I have one last thing to share. So my mom brought me this today, and it is a picture that I drew when I was starting in the school system. And it is like a little shark in the ocean, and it's kind of stereotypical.
I just wanted to add really quickly, when I took training for the AP course, studio art course, probably about 6 years ago, the amount of applicants that they had sending in portfolios was about 30,000 students that they'd have send in portfolios from all over the United States. So it's quite a competitive field. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. We have some incredibly talented kids. Thank you, Emily, for sharing your talent with us. The second thing I have for the board tonight is the student enrollment report. And of course, you can read it and go through it more in detail on your own. But the first thing I just want to highlight a couple things is as of last Friday, we had 3,424 students enrolled, which is an additional 54 students over last year at this time. And represents a 1.6% growth if we just look at the first 2 weeks of school last year to this year. Our attendance was up last week, which was, we were all kind of holding our breath to see what would happen starting a week early, and the kids showed up. We had the dip on Friday before the holiday, like we talked about last year when we were talking about calendar. Every day before a holiday or a vacation, we have a dip. So we held true to that pattern, but overall our attendance was up, even when you put that day back in there. Carrie and Haley came in slightly above what we estimated, and Hemingway is slightly below. And so you can see the actual enrollment there, what was predicted, what the budget was built on, what the enrollment was as of last Friday. And you can also see some class size or class caseload or course load tables in there. Just want to make sure that the context is there. Wood River Middle School has very few changes from the time in the spring when they set their schedule to the fall. There's not a lot of choices for students, and so pretty much what they say in the spring they're going to take is what they take in the fall, and there's not a lot of schedule changing. Wood River High School, on the other hand, has extensive choices for students, and so they sign up in the spring for their courses. And in the fall, everything changes. And bless the counselors for hanging in there and trying to make sure the students have what is right for them, even though it turns everything upside down at the beginning of the year, where they make it happen. There's a lot of changes there. Silver Creek, every student is on an individual learning plan, so each content area teacher is teaching every student in that content on an individualized plan. So even trying to talk about what sections they have there, I couldn't even figure out how to wrap my mind around it because it's very different. And then Carrie, we like to be unique here, so each of our schools are different. Carrie, the secondary classes are often combined classes. I'm oftentimes blown away at some of the things I see in Miss Young's class when she's teaching. She maybe only has 6 kids in the class, but she's teaching 2 or 3 classes at one time so that students can get the course that is best for them, despite being a small school. And many of their secondary teachers also teach elementary students during the day. But overall, it looks like we're staying in range where we need to be on class size. And some teachers have a little bit lighter case or student load than others, depending on what subject area they teach and the demand for that subject. But overall, it's looking pretty good. And then the last thing I'd like to say before I turn it back to our chair is I'd just like to welcome Brian Fletcher tonight. He's sitting there with Val, learning his first day on the job as our new finance manager. He's jumping right in here. But I'd also like to take this opportunity to publicly thank Val for stepping in. A year ago at this time, our finance department was 4 people strong. The last couple months, it's only been 2 people strong. And it'll never go back to, well, I should say never, but it's not going back to 4 because we reduced positions at the district level all across last spring, as you're aware. But they're now back to 3. So That will help because this is the busiest time of year with new payroll to establish because it's the start of a new year. It's also, we just went through open enrollment, so all of the employees had opportunities to change benefits. Not all of them did, but a lot of them did. Schools are ordering all their beginning of the year supplies, so they're ordering a much larger volume than normal, so there's a lot more POs and those kinds of things to run. Free and reduced meal applications are coming in droves, and we're working as hard as we can to get those processed so that we're feeding kids that need to be fed. And on top of that, we have the audit going on. So Val, the two people in the finance office with Val leading it, have kept us going since our retirement of Mr. Chatterton and pending our arrival of Mr. Fletcher. And so Val, thank you for making that happen.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments by the board?
Nice work on the attendance. And I'm glad that the calendar shift that we made actually resulted in not a failure of enrollment. Actually.
Well, let's hope for a really healthy year, because if we can keep our enrollment up all year, that would be phenomenal. Our kids learn better when they're in school.
It would also be beneficial to our top line as well.
Kids first.
Kids first, and you said that. I'll take the money side.
All right. Thank you very much. And at this time, I'd like to go ahead and turn the time over to Odalis Ocampo for our student liaison report. This is her first time giving the report and serving. We'd like to welcome her to the table.
Thank you. So I'd like to start off with Cary High School. We have started the year off with a lot of enthusiasm. Our high schoolers can't wait until our homecoming week, which starts on Monday 19th. Our bonfire pep assembly will take place Tuesday 20th at 8:30 p.m. and our homecoming parade will be that following Friday the 23rd. The football game will follow at 7, and our Panther boys will play their homecoming game against Lighthouse. High school student-led conferences are coming up quickly, especially for our seniors, and they will be held on October 6th. Our drama club has already started practices and are planning to show their first performance on October 22nd and their last on October 24th. This is all for Cary High School, and we will now see Wood River High School. Wood River is having a fantastic start to their year. Some of their upcoming events include a support of our troops tribute football game on the 16th at Homer Stadium, starting at 6 p.m. Fans should wear camo. Homecoming week is September 26th through the 30th, and the parade will take place on that Friday at 3:30, and the football game starts at 7. Emily Thayer would like the board to know how excited she is to be this year's board representative from Wood River High School. She looks forward to serving both the school board and the Wood River High School. We will now move on to Silver Creek. We started the year with team building activities and to establish a positive culture. There was a pie eating contest, basketball, and other activities that the students really enjoyed. We started the year off right, great attitudes, and overall better culture than the last year. Silver Creek received a $50,000 grant from the State Department of Education through the Idaho Mastery Education Network for the continuation of the Innovation School redesign. I would like to end this report by saying how honored I am to be here representing Cary School and all of the Blaine County students. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, as far as announcements go, this Friday, September 16th, is a student data review day where there will be no school for students. Tuesday, October 11th, will be our regular October board meeting. Item C, ISBA, Idaho State School Boards Association, annual convention will be in Boise on November 9th through 11th. I think this will be the first year since I've been on the board that I will not be able to attend due to work schedules. But I would strongly encourage any other board members to take advantage of that opportunity. Part of the convention is a business session where they will be voting on the proposed bylaw changes as well as lobbying platforms for the legislative sessions that will be upcoming for the next 2 years. If we do not have a board member there present, we will not be able to cast votes for that business session. So I would strongly recommend going with an open mind, learning, participating in the training, and participating in that business session. As such, I believe on Thursday at 7 down in Gooding, we just received an email that there will be a review for Region 4 for that business session, any proposed bylaw changes. Dinner is at 6:30, and I believe the actual meeting starts at 7. So that will be at the Gooding High School if any trustee wants to attend that. As far as the Zone 3 vacancy, applicant letters of interest are due Friday, September 16th by 3 p.m. As mentioned earlier, our appointment interviews will take place on Tuesday, September 20th at 6 p.m. here in the Manning Moore Room at the community campus. If an appointment is made at that September 20th meeting, they will be sworn into office at the regular October 11th board meeting. With that, kind of concludes the chair report, and we'll go ahead and move on to the business. And first item on continuing business is the treasurer appointment. I'll go ahead and open it up for questions, comments, discussion by the board at this time. Just as a kind of a precursor and a reminder, I guess, back in July, we appointed Ms. Siemens as the interim treasurer, knowing that we would potentially be hiring a new business manager. We decided to appoint her interim at that time so that we could receive monies from the state. Thank you, from the state government. And we'll go ahead and open it up for discussion, comments.
I think that what we're talking about is the same job description. Is that right? That was in there before?
That's the information that we have, is our current job description for the finance manager. Also included is the Idaho Code and our school district policy for that treasurer position.
Which hasn't changed.
Currently, from what I am reading from Idaho Code, the only duties that are prescribed per Idaho Code are to receive the monies and account for that, and items as directed by the board.
Mm-hmm.
To my knowledge, the board has not directed any additional items to that position. So for us, unless we're want to discuss further items, monies, or possibly who that would continue to be, whether it would continue to be Val with her experience, or whether it would possibly shift to Brian Fletcher, the current business manager. That's all up for discussion. But in our motion in July, it was appointed interim until, was it September, October? September board meeting. Mm-hmm. So if we do not appoint someone here at this meeting, we will not have a treasurer, and as such, we will not be able to collect monies from the state.
Right. Is there one that wants to do it and one that doesn't? You volunteer.
I served in that capacity in Canada.
And there's been board discussion probably within the year about the opportunities that this position could afford the board. And I think that possibly that would be a good idea to, when we get a full board, to be able to talk about the opportunities that could afford. So I would wholeheartedly support your appointment as treasurer until the new board member gets their feet under them, maybe say 6 months time, I think would be a good idea.
Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Siemens.
Just informational, I want to let you know that when you continue to change who the treasurer is, there is a cost to that because we have to go through changing our signatures on our checks, and we have to do a lot of work with the bank for that. So there is work that has to be done whenever we change the treasurer. The treasurer signs checks and is listed on our bank account, and, along with the board chairman. So when you talk about doing temporary assignments, that is the impact that it has. It doesn't mean that we can't do it that way. I'm just letting you know that's what the impact is.
So I don't think that this passed, since you've been the interim, there has been no impact because you would have been the treasurer, no matter what during that time. I can see the point on if a future board had to change, say in 6 months, wanted to make that position a different type of position. What kind of time cost would that have? Do you have to go down to the bank and change a signature?
Well, we have to send the signatures into our software company, and so that takes 3 to 4 weeks to get that signature back. So our signatures haven't changed on our checks because of that, which is concerning to the bank. They understand that we've had this temporary situation, but they're wanting that resolved. And then we would have to go to the bank and change the signatures on the cards. At the bank, would have to coordinate that with Mike because he's still.
And there is a charge.
Oh.
And there is a charge. It costs $200 when we change our software signatures. So I'm trying to make you aware.
Mike is still the treasurer, even though he's not.
Well, he's the signator.
He's the signator because I was the temporary one, and I did go to the software company and had my signature changed with that, but it's taken this long and we still haven't got the signature back from the software company.
So if I got this right, what you're saying is we'll go to change it again, and then that's going to put another 4 weeks, month onto it, where you haven't even gotten yours yet.
Right.
So we're really
Yeah, I'm trying to do
major
it the
punt.
right way. I'm trying to keep it
Yeah,
all
I got
in
it.
and do
I
it the
got
right
it.
way. And, at this point, we just need to get the treasurer on the account and so that we can move forward. And so that's my concern.
Dr. Holmes.
Yeah, my recommendation would be that you appoint a treasurer for the rest of the school year. Because you had the work session earlier about treasurer duties. And at this point, unless one of you has worked on it, unbeknownst to me, there isn't a separate job description. And so you can take this school year to work on a separate job description if you want to consider it at your organizational meeting next year. But that helps us get settled down for this year and get rolling instead of the constant.
So this is the discussion prior to the action item on the agenda. This is an action item later. So basically what it sounds like in this conversation, given the pretty simple tasking of what this current role has, is that we keep Val in place and just have Val do this through the year. And then at the next annual meeting, we can go on to appointment for the new treasurer as that stands. That's probably the logical approach that I would throw out on the table as it stands right now. Given what's required by this, given the effort that's made, I think Val's fully competent of signing checks and cashing them, so that should not be too complicated a task. That's probably what makes the most sense to me, to be stated in the open.
Val, have you been bonded yet?
No.
So is the bond still under Mike's? Because somebody's supposed to be bonded and to be in that fiscal position.
Yeah, this has all just been a temporary position, so no, I did not get bonded.
Okay.
And we need to get that taken care of as well.
Okay.
Which probably leads to the anxiety that the bank currently has with the flux that is in this position. So I would say that's a good point you make.
I would recommend that whatever decision we make tonight as a board on who that is, I would tend to agree with Dr. Holmes that it needs to be until that July organizational meeting and carry through the rest of the remainder of the school year with whoever that decision is made tonight.
It gives you time to get your new person on board and have a discussion among yourselves and do that and relieve the balance.
Who does need to be bonded? Is it the finance manager or is it the treasurer?
The treasurer position.
Okay.
So
And if
I'm-
the finance manager is the treasurer, then that would be the one who gets bonded.
Yeah.
So I'm getting confused because I just said who wants it, and I know it was Mr. Fletcher, and then you're saying Val.
Well, the process, what I'm saying is the process is in place for Val to do it.
Mhm.
The task is not that complicated. Mr. Fletcher was so honorable to step up to the plate and be willing to do it. That's wonderful. But the necessity, I don't think, is necessarily there of him having to take that on.
Mm.
I think Val's fully capable, so I would just consider moving forward with status quo for the calendar year, or for the fiscal year, redo this when we have our annual meeting and our replacement at the beginning of next fiscal year.
9 more months.
Yeah, because it's pretty much,
How long are the bonds for? Does anybody know?
When I was in Cuba, it was every 12 months.
Every 12 months? Okay.
I'm not sure if that was something specific to the bonding company in CUNA, or if that would be the same in Canada.
Okay.
So I would just use that as a
Well,
benchmark,
insurance
not a-
companies kind of, if it's a 12-month bond, it's a 12-month bond, but sometimes you can do them for longer periods of time. So that's why I was wondering.
Further questions, comments, discussion?
Whether it's March or July, or, July 1st, doesn't matter to me.
Okay. We'll go ahead and move forward then with item B, and that will be on this, item A will be on the agenda later under the decisions portion. And we'll move on to item B, consideration of the MOU with the City of Haley for the Wood River Middle School field irrigation. And I'll turn the time over to Dr. Holmes.
Okay, it's back. This is the MOU for water with the City of Haley, and because dates have been changed on the one that we previously approved, it had to go back to the City of Haley, and now it is back to us again. And I tried to put a memo on it to bullet point for you the big points. The change primarily from the last one you saw is this gives us water rights from the well for 2017, 18, and 19, because 16 is virtually gone at this point. We do have to have the well working with the pump and the water vault and all those things by the end of November, weather permitting. So if we have an early snow season, here's hoping, that will give us the wiggle room we need to be able to finish that in the spring. And then if we want to purchase the water rights, we would purchase those by October 31st of 2019. So that gives us almost 3 full seasons to determine, is this a good option for us? Because as we've talked about before, we have the option of watering the fields and continuing to use them for athletics, both with our own programs and within the community. Or we have the option of not watering the fields and then no longer using them for athletics. If we choose to water them, we can continue to use the municipal water system, which we are using, which is quite expensive and also isn't contributing to our environmental, isn't giving our environmental contribution to the valley by using potable water for irrigation purposes. Or we could use well water. So it's your choice on how you want to move forward on this.
Basically, the way I'll go ahead and start the discussion by the board at least. The way I look at it is between the installation cost and the electricity cost to pump for the 3 years, it's almost a wash with what our current water rates are for the next 3 years. Then we have that decision in 3 years of whether to purchase or go back to paying the $80,000 for the use of the
City potable water.
Potable water. I think it's something definitely we should look into. And I'll leave it at that. Go ahead and open it up for discussion or questions, comments by the rest of the board.
Who was the attorney reviewing the MOU?
Mr. Stemp, as last time.
Okay. And does he have prior experience in working with water rights?
Yes, he has been our attorney on multiple water issues over the years.
Trustee Corker, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering, what's the downside? Where are the red flags, if there are any in this? What's our risk in terms of water running out or?
Correct. If the water, that would be the risk, is if there's not enough water in that well to get us through a season of approximately 9 acres of playing field, we would have to use city water then at that point. So we would have those bills on top of that. It could be that at the end of 3 years we say, well, this well has enough water in it to get us through mid-August, but it doesn't get us through to October, or we can say it has enough water to get us through, and it's worth purchasing.
So we have a sunk cost, and we're gambling if they're still going to have water, and if we're wrong on that, I mean, is
well,
that...
I'm not sure I want to say gambling, because we've had Mr. Stemp and both Mr. Scanlon, Mr. Royal worked with Mr. Scanlon, and looking at this well, and the best guess is we'll do the 9 acres, but only the 9 acres.
So basically what this means is that we have 3 years as a trial period.
Right.
There's 3 years of trial to make sure that the capacity of the well is up to the standard that we need to facilitate the fields that need to be watered. If at the end of 3 years we determine that that's not going to work, we don't have to take the water right. We can pass it up. The cost in the interim will be the same as if we continue to use the methodology we currently use or the way we put new infrastructure in and use that water. So the cost is even for 3 years on that. At the end of 3 years, we can determine, whoever's sitting here at the end of 3 years can determine that's a good value, that's not a good value. So there's really no downside to this operation. There's only upside. And the positive to me is the fact that this is non-potable water, which means we're doing a service to the community, that we're not burning water that could go into people's houses, into their kitchens to cook food. And that's, to me, something we should publicize and be prudent in, and just use water that's for irrigation only. So that's the view I have on this.
Trustee Corker.
Okay, so I need to understand one more piece of this. Okay, I understand there's been several people who have spoken out. I know Gary Morrison is very concerned about water disappearing out of the valley. So this particular well does not have, if it, I'm just looking at worst case, if it went dry, say year 2, what happens then?
We would have to go back to the previous source, but we wouldn't be on the hook for the expense of paying for the water right in the interim.
Okay,
so
that's my concern.
That's what you need not to be worried about. We don't have to pay that for 3 years out. That's what I'm saying. 3 years is the decision to buy the water right. This is just experimental and utilization during that window.
So what I was originally understanding is that there's a sunk cost for 3 years, and if the water, this is, as I said, I'm just thinking about worst case scenarios. Huge drought, say huge drought for 2 years, something happens, water dries up. We have, say, 180,000 dedicated for 3 years to this. Is that my understanding?
No, we have initial upfront cost of $210,000 to install the infrastructure.
Okay.
And then we use that for 3 years. If it goes dry after 2 years, we still have that $210,000 in infrastructure, and then we would have to
put another source through that infrastructural improvement.
Well, we'd have to buy from the city is what I'm trying to get at.
Correct. Have to buy that water from the city, but we would buy it anyways because we're buying it anyways right now.
Right, but in addition to that, we would have had the sunk cost of $210,000.
Which
so
would be a capital
that's what I'm trying. That's what I'm trying to quantify. If we have a sunk cost and then something goes wrong and we have to actually buy it off the shelf, that increases our cost. Versus if we're just spending the same amount of money year by year to get it from the city. I'm just trying to mitigate any kind of risk.
It definitely does increase slightly your risk, but with the potential of, if it works out, purchasing the water rights for $180,000, and then you just have the electrical costs pumping above and beyond that for decades to come.
True, that's your long-term gain, right? Like your long-term gain is there's no
your risk
expense.
reward.
So you're paying longer term the same as you would have paid from for Haley, or maybe not. Maybe you're getting it cheaper. I don't know.
And you'd be getting it way cheaper, because once you get to the point of the water right and owning it, then as long as that water right is producing water, you
Got
have
it.
that water for free
Right.
on to the future
Okay.
for 100 years.
I see. It's like an option to buy 3 years out.
Yes. So you get to test it for
Test
3
drive it
and then
first.
buy it. So
What tests have been run to test how much water is in the well, or get an estimate?
I don't know what tests have been run. I don't know. Mr. Royal, can you speak to that? I do know that we've talked with both Terry Scanlon and Jim Speck about it, because we were wondering, is this a good deal, a bad deal? Should we even bring this to you, or should we tell them no? So.
Sure. The well was constructed as a municipal well that didn't pan out, but my recollection is it pumped almost 1,000 gallons a minute with a minimal drawdown in the well. So it's deemed to be a very substantial well. It should provide the water without going dry. If we did go into a drought year, the same thing would affect the municipal well that would affect this well more than likely. So that's kind of a push. They would probably ask us not to pump at that point, and we would have to do something else.
It's already registered with the state for water for that field and that field only. So the state has already said that this well serves that size of piece of land or property.
Right. And the other thing is the current calculations from the city are based on the current water rate that they're billing us, and more than likely those rates will increase through at some point in the future. They're certainly not going to, they're not going to go down, so they'll probably go up. So the value will increase to us as their water rates go up to us.
And then after 3 years, it'll be free. The water coming out of there will be free because our sunk cost will have already been.
Well, we will have developed it, and if we purchase the water rights, then it'll be the pumping costs and maintenance costs.
Right.
So there should be a benefit to us. Plus, we're not taking water from the municipal system that's been treated. We are taking well water and putting it on the fields.
Now, just to add to the confusion here, or the gamble or the risk that we're taking, if you remember in the MOU, under the recitals, under G, the city would consider providing us the water rights for exchange of land as well. So it could be, because they're looking for land out at Croy for snow, they're looking for land for parking around where our Haley Elementary field sits. So we don't know what 3 years from now is, but at least we can test drive it before we're giving away land, putting down money, whatever type of thing.
Further discussion? All right, we will go ahead and move on to item C, school district draft policies. Financial policy 849, personal reimbursements, 846, travel allowance, 868, use of school district charge cards, 869, cash on hand funds, 854, cancellation of checks, 862, signature authority for activity checks, 852, issuance of checks. Is there any questions, comments, discussions regarding these policies?
Have they been reviewed by the policy committee?
No, we haven't met all summer.
Okay, so nobody's reviewed those policies.
But they've been reviewed, but not by the committee, because they have not yet met. They knew these were coming out. This was the schedule we were given by the state, so they just haven't been able to meet yet. I think you guys are meeting next week, right?
Thursday, I hope.
Trustee Corker.
So can we wait another month on this until so that we're not in violation of policy 203.1?
What implications does that have?
We signed an agreement with the state that we would have all of these done by July. We missed it. January 1. So
we have another month.
Well, you remember the schedule that we got at the beginning of the year, so you're going to add on to your load to do those.
Well, we're just looking at these now. These aren't up for approval tonight, are they? No. These are just for review by us, and we vote on them next month.
Right. You vote on them next month, so they will review them next week.
So we're not voting on it tonight anyway, so everybody can take a further look. Committee can browse them, and we can pass them next month.
It is a very ambitious schedule. I congratulate you on doing this. I mean, I think this was one of the things you ought to be very proud of this year, is getting we had no financial policies whatsoever, and by the end of the year, you'll have a nice book of them.
Yeah, I've read through them all, and they seem completely adequate and cover things. And I don't have a company card, so I'm not going to get disciplined for abuse.
We are not your financial committee. It is a policy committee. I'm not sure the logic of the policy committee reviewing all the financial policies as opposed to the board. These are your policies. You have another month to look at them, but if you want to run through the policy committee, I can't guarantee you we're going to get through all these policies, plus the other policies that we really do need to look at, such as parental rights and things like that. So.
All right, I would just recommend if there are any comments from that policy committee, forward
Send
them
them on.
on to the board. Other than that, we will revisit in our October board meeting. With that, we'll go ahead and move on to our new business, and with draft policies 824, financial emergency, 206.3, inventory records of fixed assets, financial policy, employee use of school district equipment, financial policy, disposal of surplus property and equipment, and I believe that these will also be on the agenda for decisions in the next October board meeting, and I'll turn the time over to Dr. Holmes.
I think we're getting ourselves confused here. The first set of policies you just read, personal reimbursements all the way through issuance of checks, were first introduced to the board last month,
Correct.
and
So
they're
we are.
on the agenda for a vote tonight.
They're action items tonight.
And then the ones that Mr. Binion just read are the ones that are new tonight for your first review.
And just looking at the decision portion of the agenda, I don't see them listed, so I think we
Did
will
they
need...
not get listed? Oh, okay.
So I think
All
we
right.
will be...
So you'll be approving them all next
We will
month,
be
okay.
revisiting.
Took care of that, didn't we?
I think that's where I thought they were only on the consent, because
All
I
right.
didn't remember seeing them there.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
All
once again,
right.
if there's any
You got your homework.
feedback from the policy committee, please feel free to pass that on to the board. Item B, under new business.
Oh, I did have one comment.
Oh.
I think that I like the financial emergency policy. I love how that's stated, and I love the fact that I'd like to compliment this board on moving further away from a financial emergency than we were a year ago. Given the stipulations and guidelines within that policy, we are much further away from being in a financial emergency, just as a percentage of general fund balance, so on and so forth. So I like the language in it. I like what it's directing us.
If I could add,
With the balanced budget.
it
Dr.
also
Holmes.
referenced the code there because there are parameters on declaring financial emergencies, and if you as a board would ever declare one, which we're not because we are, like Mr. Clayton pointed out, we're moving away from that, then you have the State Department also coming in and verifying that your declaration of a financial emergency or not. So you don't get to do it completely by yourself. So I think it's a great one.
Further comments, discussion? All right. Appointment of teacher board liaison. This is a policy that we passed last year as a board, policy 203.4D, and we do have an application which is bookmarked for our review. If I remember correctly, that is Ms. Jana Fitzpatrick. I believe that's the only application, if I understand correctly. And this would be for a rotating 3-month interim. And open up for any questions, comments, discussion by the board at this time. I believe this is on the agenda later on this evening for that appointment to take place.
Well, nice we have one application. I think it's a little underwhelming that that's the amount of interest, but the opportunity is new and something that should be, we've got it in place, so hopefully we can move it forward. It's appropriate that we have an elementary school teacher because that's the first 3 months of the rotation.
All right. Any further questions, comments? Moving forward then to item C, Cary School Course Addition Request. Turn that time over to Dr. Holmes or Mr. Peck.
Either Ms. Martinez or Mr. Peck, do either of you want to share anything with us on the request for Cary School course additions?
Why, thank you, kind sir.
We have a new business ed teacher this year that wanted to change some of the courses that he was teaching. And so these are the additions to that courses that he's teaching, that he will teach in the future, right?
In the second and third
Yeah, he will be teaching.
Yeah, right,
Very
right.
important.
Are there any additional costs that are anticipated?
No.
Or, no.
They're just more
No, it's
modern.
business law, web design, and business management are the three that we had not previously taught.
I think it's great.
Should be very good for everybody involved.
Let's give students more opportunities.
What I would like to hear what our board liaison student thinks about that.
I think it's a great opportunity for Cary students to have more classes to choose from, and those are some really helpful classes, and I'm currently in one of them.
You're going to be in one of them.
Yeah.
Which one? I'm just curious.
Web design.
Yeah, that sounds like a really good one.
It will be really good.
It's exciting.
It will be exciting.
To be fair to Cary School, they brought this item forward in June, and because of the load on the agenda, it didn't get on, so.
Sounds good.
All right. No further questions, comments, discussions. We'll go ahead and move forward with the agenda and move to the second section of public comment. And the only one that we've received is Ellen Mandeville, representing herself.
Well, thanks for the opportunity for public comment. I came tonight I noticed on the agenda, which is on your consent agenda coming up, the applications for the study travel by student group model Union Nations. And I think the Model UN, the Model United Nations, is just a fantastic program. I don't know much about it, but what I've heard is really positive. So I'm just here to comment on that. Model UN is a simulation of the United Nations General Assembly, in which students act as ambassadors. The students included in their activities is research, writing, speech making, and negotiation. Through Model UN, students gain many insights about their own country, countries around the world, and prepares them to be an active participant in geopolitical realities they will face as adults that we all get to face right now, and they're facing soon. So I'm just here to say, please approve the applications. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you for your comment. And with that, we'll go ahead and move forward to the decisions portion of the agenda. And we have item A, the consent agenda, consideration of minutes, regular August 16th, 2016 board meeting, acceptance of monthly financial report, payment of bills, application for study travel by student group Model United Nations, Joe Zellers, application for study travel by student group Model United Nations in March 2017 for Joe Zellers, and the consideration of personnel exiting and entering. And Ms. LaChance, would you mind sharing those?
We do not currently have certified staff exiting. For certified staff recommending for hire contingent on receipt of all required documentation, there is Rebecca Bornhoff-Duncan, technology education teacher at Wood River High School, Kelsey Buchanan, 1.0 FTE PE health teacher at Wood River Middle School, Lori Burks, 1.0 FTE Spanish teacher at Wood River High School, Melanie Blacker, 1.0 FTE DI teacher English at Alturas, Ellen Sanders, 0.6 FTE orchestra teacher at Wood River High School. Classified staff exiting, Amanda Christ, paraprofessional at Haley Elementary, Melanie Blacker, paraprofessional at Bellevue Elementary, Jane Turner, paraprofessional at Wood River High School, Rebecca Bornhoff-Duncan, instructional tech and data specialist in technology, Freddie Velasco, paraprofessional at Haley Elementary. Classified staff recommending for hire, Brian Fletcher, finance manager, district office, Ted Dyer, bus driver, transportation, Daniel Hoot, bus driver, transportation, Christopher Bluma, custodian, community campus. Tad Saldivia, weekend custodian, community campus. Josephine Jordan, developmental preschool paraprofessional, Haley Elementary. Lindsay Brick, paraprofessional, Haley Elementary. Rocio Paucar, ENL paraprofessional, Alturas Elementary. Jose Hernandez, maintenance mechanic, buildings and grounds. Kenneth Ward, maintenance custodian, buildings and grounds. Adriana Avila, custodian at Wood River High School. Classified coaching staff exiting: Gary Carr, assistant varsity volleyball coach, Wood River High School. Jane Turner, head varsity volleyball coach, Wood River High School. Christopher Hansen, this is for a coach-only position, head boys soccer coach at Wood River Middle School.
All right, I'll go ahead and call for a motion at this time.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second. Any discussion?
I'm fully a fan of the Model UN, and I'm glad that we're participating in that, and I think that's a great thing.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Item B, consideration of student teaching placement under the direction of Cecilia Heath, social worker at Silver Creek High School during the 2016-17 school year. Any discussion? Or I will entertain a motion at this time.
I'll make that motion.
Motion to approve.
Sure.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed?
I was an aye.
Okay.
All right, let me just, did you get the motion? Are you okay with the motion on that last one?
With the current
For the student teacher with Ms. Heath at Silver Creek?
to approve.
Okay. Just double checking.
Yes, thank you.
She'll ask me tomorrow, and I'll say, I don't know.
Okay. 4 ayes, any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. The Cary School Course Edition.
I move that we approve the menu of business courses presented by Cary School and get those going as soon as we can so we can get those kids in those classes.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Consideration of MOU with City of Haley for the Wood River Middle School field irrigation. I'll go ahead and entertain a motion at this time.
I make a motion to move forward with the MOU with the City of Haley for the irrigation setup and the long-term potential of purchasing the water rights to that well.
I will second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I think that we have an opportunity here. I think there is some risk to the opportunity, but at the same time we have enough time and window in the interim to really continue our due diligence with ascertaining if it's going to work properly or not. So long-term, long-range, the benefit is there both financially and environmentally for the district, so I'm fully supportive of making this move.
I would tend to agree with you, Trustee Clayton, that while I do understand there's some slight potential risk in the short term, I think the long-term possibilities, especially where we have the option to test drive for 3 years, I think is a risk well worth taking for the district for the future benefits. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Brings us to item E, treasurer appointment, and I will entertain a motion at this time.
I'll make a motion to appoint Val Siemens as treasurer through the remainder of this fiscal year, to be reviewed again at the annual meeting, July 2017.
Motion?
I'll second.
Second? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Motion carries 3-1. Teacher Board Liaison appointment.
So this is to appoint the person that we got the thing.
The application from.
The application from. I will make that motion to appoint Jenna Fitzpatrick to the Teacher Board Liaison position.
I will second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. I'd like to welcome Miss Jana Fitzpatrick.
Is she here?
She is. She's in the white coat right back there.
She's doing her homework.
Thank you for stepping up.
Brings us to item G, consideration of bid award recommendation for the purchase of district fuel for the 2016-17 school year. Mr. Squires is here if there's any questions.
As you may recall, we went back to the bid process again this month, and we did have the bid opening, and we did receive the bid that we were anticipating. What the recommendation is that you award the purchase of district fuel to United Oil, based here in Haley, and it has the appropriate rates and things in there in the memo that I sent to you. Just for your general information, if we were to maintain the same fuel usage that we did last year over the course of this fiscal year, then we would save about $650 off of the cost of our fuel that we have for the district this year. It doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're dealing with it in half-penny increments, it adds up, takes a long time to add up. So that's the recommendation.
So the total amount for district fuel for the year is, what are we talking?
We purchase approximately 60,000 gallons of fuel during the year, and depending on the street price, obviously that can be there. Right now we're at $2.25, $2.50, $2.50 a gallon. So we're talking potentially $150,000
For all of our buses and everything?
All our buses, all our maintenance vehicles, all of the little short buses that we use for field trips, any activities, that kind of thing, anything that's a vehicle here in the district.
Okay, and the cars and everything?
Everything.
Go to that particular?
Correct.
Okay.
Just for clarifying purposes, there's a few buses down in Cary that don't come up to Haley. Is there an option to fuel up down in Cary, or do they solely come up to Haley?
No, we actually are able to use the Castle's Corner there in Haley. We're on
Cary.
Excuse me, in Cary, yeah. I live there, yeah, I should know that, right? But yeah, to facilitate using that location for fuel, we are on a national fleet card network, which gives us a discount initially of taxes. They don't charge us that, but we also gain a discount by using that national fleet card for any fuel that we purchase there, whether it's for our buses or for the maintenance equipment there as well, snow blowers, that kind of thing during the wintertime. So we do receive a discount there. It's just through a different provider.
All right. Any further questions, discussion?
I have a future question. So, like, what we do here and what's been bid out is on a base price that fluctuates with the market.
Correct.
So, is there ever a possibility, given the low cost of fuel as it stands right now, to do like an airline deal where you can buy all of your fuel at one rate? Or like you buy your heating oil, or you do those types of things? Have we ever pursued that or looked into that?
We have not. Play in the commodities market? No, we've not taken a chance to take a look at
Given
that.
the historic
Rate of
volatility,
fuel, yeah,
it's like it may drop, but I mean, we're not going to do it this year, obviously, but I'm throwing that question out there because there could be, at the volume of fuel consumed, considerable savings
if we were able to lock in a price.
If we were lock in a price at a low rate.
And I can check into that. I don't know that
I'm
that's
curious
an
about
option,
I'm
but
curious
we can
about
certainly
that.
check into that.
I'm curious.
Yeah, I'll just say as a commodity trader that I think you're exactly right. You don't know. It could go back down. I took a picture of the sign at Costco. This was only maybe 6 months ago. It was $1.49.
Yeah.
So that's a lost opportunity cost. You just don't know. It's a gamble.
All right. Do I have a motion on the table considering the bid award recommendation for the purchase of fuel?
I have one other quick question.
Trustee.
So the way that this works is how do they give you a price if it's fluctuating?
Okay, so
It's
the
the
way
margin.
the way that the price works is they have a cost per the gallon of fuel, plus they have a delivery cost, and that number will modify or change depending on how much the cost of fuel coming off the pipeline is. Where they can make a difference in their bidding process is what they charge us to deliver that fuel for us to access it, and so that's really the only negotiable part of what this bid process is that delivery cost to us that they provide that service and a pump for us to access it and things like that.
And just curious, their price versus the markup, how much percentage-wise are they marking up? Just curious.
In the memo, it's actually 5 cents a gallon for anything that we access through a commercial station. So they only get 5 cents per gallon for each gallon that we pump. Where we have all of the buses that are fueled at our location, we have our own tank on site. They actually charge us half a penny per gallon to deliver that by tanker load. So when we get a load, it can be anywhere between 5,000 and 10,000 gallons at a time. And they only charge us half a penny per gallon when they bring that much to us at one time.
Thank you.
I move that we go with the proposal that Rex has brought before us.
I second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0, which brings us to the adjournment of the regular September board meeting. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion to adjourn.
Second. Motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Meeting adjourned at 7:37, and we'll jump right into our special meeting of the board, work session. And I'll go ahead and call that to order at 7:37 as well, and ask if there's any additions, corrections, modifications, or substitutions to the current agenda. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and jump in with a board discussion of the administrator negotiations. In your packets, Idaho Code has been referenced, and I'd actually like to turn the time over to Dr. Holmes. I met with Dr. Holmes on Friday of last week, and seeing as how this is something fairly new to the board, I wanted to check with Amy White, who is a very predominant school district attorney. I asked Dr. Holmes to check with that, and I believe she heard back yesterday or today about that. And would you please report that?
Yeah, I talked to, am I on? I can't remember if I turned. Now am I on? Am I helping you? Okay, I talked to Amy yesterday afternoon, and I'm frantically digging here for the notes. And asked her, what is the process for negotiating with administrators? And she said there is no process in statute. It's just not something that's ever been done in Idaho before. But she recommended that we follow the statutes that tell you how to negotiate with teachers. That would probably keep us in safe territory if we follow those statutes. And so there's information in those statutes. It's in your packet about, the superintendent and a trustee or a trustee negotiating with employees who are members of the group that we're negotiating with. Or if you elect to select somebody from outside of the board and the superintendent to negotiate, then the group of employees that we're negotiating with also has the right to select somebody from outside to be there to do negotiations for them. And of course, there's statutes about it being in good faith, being open to the public, all those kinds of pieces like you're familiar with as we do every year when we negotiate with our Teachers Association. Her other comments was she wasn't quite sure why the board would want to do this. You're setting a precedent and giving away power, is her words. So.
All right, I'll go ahead and open it up for discussion, questions, comments, and we'll go from there.
Our timeline on this is to have a meeting next month in October. Is that what we need to do as a board?
That was your original motion.
I missed that meeting and I wasn't part of that vote, so
our original motion was to negotiate starting in October.
If I may, board.
This is a work session.
This is a work session with board discussion only.
I am Daryl Hardenbrook, and I represent the Teamsters Local 483.
All right, thank you.
Well, this is a work session.
I was going to say, we're going to continue first and foremost with our board discussion, and then if it is up to the board.
We have some questions, right? We could ask questions.
Definitely.
The letter was sent to the board requesting executive session to discuss process. The letter was received back to our representation saying it would start directly following the regular board meeting on the 13th from Adam King, the attorney for the board.
An executive session.
That wasn't an executive session.
Not.
Merely discussion.
Right.
What we asked for an executive session was to request a meeting with the board to discuss the parameters of the anticipated bargaining unit negotiations, which is customary. We meet beforehand. We don't negotiate, but we meet beforehand. You identify who's going to be bargaining on your behalf. We introduce the key players on our behalf.
So in this conversation, then, we're moving, it seems like we're moving rapidly here, because I think what we have to do as a board is determine actually our protocol of negotiation. Like, are we going to do a across-the-table negotiation? Are we going to do interest-based bargaining? We haven't even made that determination yet. So I think we're like in a bit of a presumptuous situation right now.
Well,
that would be
we
my
received
take.
a letter from your attorney dated August 9th stating that we're in receipt of your letter dated August 2nd, 2016. Please note that pursuant to Idaho Code 74206A, subsection 1, the negotiations that you propose cannot take place in executive session, which we didn't ask for. We just asked for the processes. But then he went on to state that it is the district's intention that salary discussions with administrative staff will commence after the September 13th, 2016 Board of Trustees meeting. And
Yeah, we're behind schedule on that. Like, we haven't even really had the conversation as a group. We meant to go, I believe, into executive session we had it on the agenda to go into executive session the last meeting to discuss how we were going to put this into place as far as our negotiation strategy. Is that correct? Amanda, is that correct?
I don't.
We had it somewhere along the line that we were supposed to do this, and we ended up not doing it. I do remember that. So that's where, like I said at the last meeting, we're running down a road here that we really need to have some control of that I'm not feeling totally in control of right now. So I think we need to have that conversation.
I remind you, though, it was. I'm sorry, I don't mean that.
That's okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to keep up with the race here.
I appreciate you being here. At our last regular board meeting, we had the discussion that we as a board would have a work session to discuss this topic. As a board, we will discuss that topic. Once we have those decisions made as a board, we will reach out at that point in time.
In good faith, Chair.
I appreciate, in good faith.
We wouldn't be here if it were not for the forward thinking of this board. Vice Chair Corker and Trustee Bustos on April 19th recommended to the people that we now represent to collectively bargain. We're here to do that at the direction of your attorney, and in good faith, we're ready.
We can tell. I can tell.
The letter stated after the September 13th regular board meeting. That did not mean 30 seconds after. It meant that anticipating a work session and the results of that work session under the code we're allowed to enter a negotiation agreement. So the negotiation agreement would come first. The negotiations would come second. There's some real questions about who can even be represented under the code by the Teamsters. And those need to be resolved also.
Dr. Holmes.
I'll go back to the statute that A.B. Wright was referring to, where the board, first of all, has to decide who is going to negotiate for them. It's 33-1273. And if the board appoints the superintendent and or a trustee to be the negotiator, then we negotiate with our own employees representing that group. If we hire somebody from the outside to negotiate, then we negotiate with whoever that group hires from the outside to negotiate. So I think that's what the board's trying to do tonight, is figure out, like Trustee Clayton was saying, do we want to do interest-based bargaining? Do we want to do traditional bargaining? Who's going to do it? All those kinds of things.
Do we want to backstep out and not get into this situation at all? I mean, that is part of our purview, too.
With all due respect, we would request that you let the board have our discussion, make our decisions, and then we will move forward.
And then you're here, so they can ask you questions if they have them. So.
I understand. Can I direct you to Statute 33-513 that does give the administrators the right to collectively bargain, plus it was you that invited us here. We went through great expense we've brought our staff attorney, we've brought the Secretary-Treasurer of Idaho who reports to James Hoffa, and we have our organizer here. And in good faith, we have a proposal to move forward. I don't see, we're here. This was directed back in April. So
it was stated in April that negotiations would be in October. This is September. You are a month
and we planned
prior.
For that, but the
so
letter dated
let the
August
board
9th.
Please have our discussion on how we are going to move forward as negotiations, and then in October, negotiations will take place if the board is still committed to that.
And may I make a comment?
Trustee Corker.
Sure. So what you're talking to is a volunteer board. The word negotiation to us is not necessarily, we don't understand the legal ramifications of the word negotiation. All of a sudden you bring in collective bargaining. When we talk to teachers, we talk to teachers. We talk to them directly. They're the people who teach our children in our classes. It's congenial. It's a respectful relationship. There are no surprises. There are no people who come out to the table from the Teamsters and all of a sudden say, you asked us to be there under collective bargaining. The word negotiation, as I said, it may be a legal term, but our attorney did not inform us of what that might have meant. We are if you're talking about good faith, I think it works both ways. And so you're talking to people who are not lawyers.
Right, I understand. I agree with everything you've said.
Right.
With that, the board will move forward with discussion on number one. Are negotiations going to continue to take place? Is this the commitment that the board is fully committed to? Number two, who is going to be negotiating for the board? Is it going to be a board member and then Dr. Holmes, or is it going to be an outside entity? And I would open those discussions up.
Well, I think the third point is, what is the methodology as well,
right, totally.
if we're going to do it. But first of all, I would take it back to the conversation. Like I said, I missed that meeting where we decided we were going to do this. I wasn't part of that vote, so I'm hostage to this right now to some degree. And so,
we all seem to be.
Pardon?
We all seem to be.
Kind of feel like it.
Yeah.
You know, so I would really like to consider reconsidering that decision in the first place. I mean, I'm not sure.
If I may, you have...
Not really, because I'm not done
Asked
yet.
by the chair. Okay?
I'm not done yet.
Please
So,
address your question. Address your questions to the chair.
what I'm kind of concerned by this, and so, you know, I've just done some investigation since the last meeting because this, like I said, this can of worms is open, and now I'm feeling like it's kind of really open. And this is something that we have to really have, I think, a frank conversation and see how we revisit this, because we're into some territory, as you just stated,
Yes.
that I know I got vilified a little bit from my comment last meeting, but this is definitely above my pay grade. This is not something I'm trained for.
But I can do it for you.
Right.
Trustee Corker.
You know, I think that what is going on here, in my mind, is school boards, the reason that when you went to the state and went to Amy White and she said this has never happened before, is because the administrators and the board have good relationships. And I think that that was, well, I think that, I don't know why you're shaking your head. I think that in general, people have good relationships. Other school boards, our school board has good relationships, and I think that that's what the good faith on the part when we said that was, we want to hear what you have to say, because we don't have to do that. And that's what happens in many other districts, is that the boards just set the administrators' salaries, period. The administrators are not brought to the table. I frankly thought that the negotiation would increase the level of trust. And I used that word negotiation, as I said, as a volunteer board member, and all of a sudden there's someone in front of me from the Teamsters, and it went from being a very collegial of, I'd like to talk to you, to, I feel, I don't want to talk to you, I want to put somebody in between this. So that's my perception. It may be wrong, but I think you've taken it from, and I'm looking at you, John, because I have a feeling that this is a little bit in your realm. So I feel like it's been taken from 0 to 60 without that level of good faith as to what the word negotiation means.
Well, and as I recall, when we as a board began discussing negotiating with the administrators, it was in the budget time. And a lot of words of cutting the administrators' salary and benefits had been used.
Mm-hmm.
And so
equalizing them, I think, is also part of it.
I think the words were feel the pain.
Cutting was used, and I can understand.
Yeah,
I can understand where the administrators would take that and would like some representation. I can fully understand that.
Shared pain. Shared pain.
So,
Mr. Chairman, may I speak now?
Mr. King?
Yeah, just one quick note. Under 33-1273, if the board and superintendent choose to negotiate, it's not limited to one board member. The code uses the plural, so it could be the entire board and the superintendent, or one or more trustees and the superintendent, just to clarify that.
Teachers.
Further discussion by the board.
Well, I'm not surprised these fellows are here. I mean, I knew that they were part of the equation and that they were engaged by the administration. That's not surprising to me. I just feel like the gas pedal's kind of floored right now. No pun intended to Teamsters, right? But it's like that. I'm really would like to reconsider our position, and I think, to the point of the administration, I think we had some strong language as a board as far as we were going into the budgeting cycle. And when I was part of the teacher, the interest-based bargaining process with the teachers, I was part of that. And that's really when this administrative salaries perceived disparity came to light. I think that was kind of a blindside bombshell in that instance. I can see where there would be concern through the teaching group of the district. At the same time, the administration, in all fairness to them, they have been working and doing their jobs status quo forever. I'm new to this board. I'm 1.5 years in. I've been through really one budget cycle. Feel very good about that budget cycle because this district is now living in a balanced budget situation, which is $2 million less a year than it was spending for the last 8 years. This administrative salary disparity to certified staff has just come to light. It's not like it just happened yesterday. It's been going on forever. So the solution that I've put out there in my short little time here is the development of a salary schedule. I don't see anybody working on that salary schedule, so I've been, of a board, because this is our purview now. We are the ones who are now in the position to become the bargainers with the administration. That's how that got voted. So this is the conundrum we're in. Work has been done. I've been in the office. I've looked at some preliminary salary schedules. I've had some input on that. I've had some vision of it. There's things in place that are pretty equitable, pretty fair. And I think just to be coming out because there's people feeling that the administrators are overly compensated to say, let's slice and dice and slash them is really unfair to them because the position they're in is the position that they status quo'd to, and you have to draw a line at some point. There needs to be a line drawn. Okay, here's where we are. How are we moving forward? We're not going to say, hey, you guys are too much. We're cutting y'all here. This isn't going to work anymore. That, to me, is rife with morale destruction, with reputational damage that will be irreparable for this school district. Go find another quality employee to come to a place that's willing to slice and cut people's compensations. I'm really not keen on working for those guys. We saw that problem with the initial business manager search. That initial business manager search led to nothing. We had 5 candidates withdraw because they didn't like the way business was being done here. Fortunately, we ended up with a quality candidate and a good person in the seat, and we'll see what job he can do, but we know we found somebody great. And God bless you, and we want to work with you and make this thing happen, right? So that's where I think this board really needs to take a hard look at the stance we've drawn and how we're going to move it. Because, like I said, I wasn't part of that vote, and I'm going to make sure the whole crowd knows I wasn't part of that vote. But we're here now, so let's figure it out.
And I would like to piggyback off that comment just a little bit, that in my term on the board, we've always had a certified salary schedule. In my term on the board, we've created a Schedule B, done away with the Schedule B for certified, and then we've also had the creation of a classified salary schedule 2 years ago. I think a next logical step would be an administrative salary schedule. But I think that's a discussion that needs to happen between the board and the administrators. I feel that much like what we did when we created the Schedule B or the classified salary schedule, we did not harm those people when those salary schedules were created. If someone was getting paid more than what they should have with the new salary schedule, their salaries were frozen until that schedule caught up to them. But it was a starting point. And I think it behooves us as a board to take that same approach out of respect to our employees. I think we're in the business of teaching kids. We're in the business of people, whether we like it or not. And ethically, I just don't feel you should do that to people.
Do what?
To go in and hold people accountable for coming into a system that didn't have that structure. As we looked at earlier with the financial emergency, from my perspective, and I could be reading it completely wrong, but from my perspective, if we hold a certain group of employees differently than we hold the entire employees in the general, if we try to do a RIF or cuts in one group, we have to do it across the board. Otherwise, we open ourselves up to liabilities. Trustee Corker.
I totally agree with what you're saying. If we treat a class of employees differently, we open ourselves up to a RIF. And I think possibly that's what's happened accumulatively over the past 15 years. And I think that what we need to do to take this off the realm of any kind of emotion is to get good, hard facts to look at exactly how much teachers have gone up, how much administration has gone up, and not just in the salaries, but in the positions, and to compare that. And that's where it will take it off the realm of any kind of emotion and put it on a more equalized basis so that we'll be able to go back and say, hey, you know, starting in the 2000s, this particular group started to go up like this. Maybe it's just one or two. I have no idea. Maybe it's the group as a whole. I have no idea. I don't have that information. I've looked at some of it, and it seems to be some of it is coming out. I'll give you one example, you know, that when you said we're in the business of teaching, you're exactly right. That's what we're in the business of. So one example that I hear about a lot, particularly from people who have kids, teachers who have children, is the disparity in the health care. And I have been hearing a lot about that lately. So last month, I was actually preparing hard for last month's meeting, and unfortunately, I couldn't get cell reception. But what I did was, in advance of that meeting, I called up the school districts that were on that comparable schedule. So there was Lakeland, there was Aspen, there was a bunch of them. And what I found out was every single school district on that schedule either had family health care for all the employees, or it had individual health care for all the employees. Blaine County School District was the only school district that had a bifurcated system where administrators got family benefits and the individual teachers did not get family benefits. And I actually talked to one HR director, and when I told them that that was the case in Blaine County, her one-word answer was, ew. And I got also a letter from a teacher who had been a member of the military, 6-year member of the military, and he said the military gives absolutely equal benefits to all enlisted people. It doesn't matter their rank. Certainly their salaries are different, but their benefits are the same, and that's very symbolic of an organization and how it treats its members. So that's where I'm coming from, and I think we need more information about this. I think that we need to equalize treatment between teachers and administrators. We need to look at the history of what's happened there, and then we may need to integrate that going forward into a plan that is fair for everyone.
I agree with you, Liz. I think that that's very important. I know that that was a big concern I had when we first started talking about this was, you know, why do the administrators get family paid health insurance?
I think this is a great point, but I think we're actually getting ahead of ourselves because these are negotiation points for us that we're actually laying on the table in front of what would be our opposing negotiating team if we continue down this road. I think that's not really prudent on us to be giving our stances and positions right now because I don't think that's a really good way to enter into a negotiation if we're going to do this kind of a negotiation. I don't know where we're going to go with this, but I do think we need to walk away from here, first of all, with 3 salient points and not be stating stance. We need to know if we're going to do it, how we're going to do it, and who's going to do it. That's what this conversation is about. It's not about what stance we have as a board or administration has as a stance. That's not the conversation. So we need to direct the conversation to the salient points.
Trustee Corker.
With all due respect, I think that we need to acknowledge the precipitating factors that led to this situation, and that's what I was trying to do.
Where this is a work session and no official action can be taken, my recommendation is we reach out to the administrators and consider a working group of a board member, superintendent, a couple board members, and a few of the administrators to work on a salary schedule that would work for the district, that would work for the administrators, that would possibly have some of those discussions about benefit packages inside of that. I think that brings it back to that personal level of that interspace bargaining, but it brings it back to a more cordial level and not as confrontational, but just a working committee. I don't think it's something that the board as a whole should, how do I put this, should spend endless hours doing. I think it's going to take a long time, multiple meetings, but I think that a board member and the superintendent would be able to do that with a couple of the administrators and then come back and have a report to the board.
Mr. Bennett.
Dr. Holmes.
That was very much how we handled the classified when we put that in place. We worked on it together. We kept going back to some of our classified representatives and saying, what does this do to you? Because our intent was to establish a schedule that made rhyme or reason of things, but not to have anybody's overall compensation package reduced on the spur of the moment. It was maybe rearranged, and as you mentioned earlier, some of them were put on the salary schedule at a maybe higher rate than they would have now that a salary schedule was in place, but they were frozen so that they did not have any immediate consequences to their compensation, and we're moving forward from that. We're 2 years in and have good relations with our classified staff.
Trustee Corker.
I thank you. I appreciate everybody's point of view on this because I can see people are used to things and yet you've got this undercurrent of many people who see a two-tier system and feel that it's unjust. And when I say people, I mean teachers. Many teachers who see a two-tier system and feel it's unjust. So on the other side, we're balanced with administrators who already have these benefits and are feeling that they don't want them taken away. So we've got these two competing things happening here. I think that they rise to the level of having all of our board voices involved and not just one. So I would like to suggest that we don't designate one person, that we all be involved with the discussion, because this permeates every single employee. And we will hear about it from every single employee.
Further discussion.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Blackman.
I think one of the reasons we're sitting here today is the administration doesn't want anything. We're not asking for anything. We're not trying to strong-arm the district here. We're not trying to squeeze blood from a turnip or get anything more. But it was made very clear in the minds of the administration, it was made very clear that we would be negotiated down only one direction. That this wasn't a fair conversation. It was basically you were going to be cut and share the pain. I'm not sure where we're sharing. And I think everyone in this room is here for one reason, and it's to educate students. But you're talking about people who are hired and brought to this district based on a certain compensation level, and within a year you're talking about cutting them as much as 10 to 20%, and I just don't. That's what caused a panic by not me, the entire administrative team. I sit with a 2-year contract. Most of these administrators don't even have a contract. And so when you start making statements like that, they get concerned. So I'm here as a voice, but believe me, it's not me I represent.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to let the board know we are not here from an ambush tactic. We wrote a letter stating our intentions back on, well, it was written on July 25th, sent on August 4th to the board, and I'm a 7th generation Idahoan. Our Secretary-Treasurer is a 3rd generation. He served in the military for 22 years. We're not coming in here or looking to come in here and bankrupt a school district. We were approached. We've had 2 attorneys, Mr. Piotrowski out of Boise, a 28-year labor attorney, and our staff attorney, look at this. We're well within the statute to bargain collectively. They have chosen to, so to do anything other than to collectively bargain, I would say that you should maybe consult your attorney before attempting to negotiate on an individual basis. Because I think, I don't know, I'm not the attorney, these guys are, that you may be in violation of state code. And we don't want to put you there. We did come in good faith. We took this letter to mean, well, first of all, it didn't answer the question we asked. And what we tried to do is be transparent. Can we meet with you in an executive session, tell us what your concerns are, we'll tell you what ours are, how we, the National Labor Relations Act typically governs this, so it's very well spelled out with years and years of law.
Well, I agree with that. There's no way possible we as a board can have that conversation in executive session. I apologize.
No,
the National Labor Relations Act does not cover public entities.
I understand that. I said
Right.
that.
So it typically governs
They don't
it.
have
It
jurisdiction.
typically does not govern it. Okay. The National Labor Relations Act typically does not govern public entities. Correct. So
what we're
forget
using
anything about the
negotiating.
National Labor Relations Act. It is totally impertinent and not germane.
Agreed.
Okay.
That's why we sent the letter to, at least, because this is the first time it's been tested in Idaho. Not our neighboring states, but the very first time in Idaho that we know of. That's our intention. We're transparent. We're not trying to snowball anybody out in the parking lot. This is the letter we got. That's what we read it to be.
Mr. King.
Well, once again, having discussions after a certain date does not mean 30 seconds after the meeting is over. The code is also pretty clear that there are numerous exclusions from the definition of professional employees. And many of the employees that are listed may not have the ability to be represented by a union.
Although in this case, 1272 actually says that they're exempted from the regulations that are cited in 1273, which gives them the opportunity to collectively bargain as they see fit because they are excluded from the teacher's limitations.
If the board chooses to do that.
Which they already have.
From my perspective, if the board chooses to go outside of the board and superintendent, then the administrators could potentially go outside of that and bring the Teamsters in. That decision has not been made by the board, and as such, the Teamsters cannot be involved up until that decision's been made, is my understanding. Adam, is that correct?
That's correct. The
What
code
I
is
just explained
excuse
is
me,
that
sir.
1272 exempts.
Sir?
Yes, I know, but you've been ignoring me for about an hour now.
Sir, this is a board meeting of the Board of Trustees. You are not an elected official by the Board of Trustees. The chair will recognize who and when
You deem
desired.
fit. Yeah.
Mr. King.
Okay. Their letter cited 1271, and based on that section, you're entirely correct. If the board chooses to conduct the negotiations, then the representative shall be a member of the organization and shall be a professional employee of the local school district. So I think you're totally correct. I don't think anybody that's not meeting that definition has any jurisdiction to do any negotiations until the board goes to an outside source. And once again, it is a work session. If you don't want to recognize anybody, that's fine too.
Further discussion by the board? Sir?
When I stand, I'm tired of sitting.
My name is Tim Estevas. I'm the Secretary-Treasurer and Principal Officer for the Teamsters, Local 43 in Boise. I just want to reiterate some of the past facts. I know we already discussed them, but I want our intent to be known here. This all started with you guys on the board, I believe in April. Started with a conversation of what was necessary to happen in order for the administrators to move forward in their specific individual contracts in conjunction with a pay schedule or some type of schedule of that nature. You guys voted on that and passed it. You basically invited them with words or actions to collectively bargain. They took that action as something they needed to take action on, and they approached us as a group and asked us to look into if it was possible to represent them. We did so through legal means and attorneys. Because it is such a initial thing within the state of Idaho, it's open to a lot of interpretation. It's open to your lawyer's interpretation, our labor's lawyer's interpretation, and everybody's opinion. We understand that. However, they did take a vote. They voted for us to represent them. You in your committee have discussed the fact that they voted to have us represent them. And I believe in your last one you talked about having a meeting prior to this meeting to decide what you were going to do about us. Now, I don't know what transpired in the middle of all that. I'm out of Boise. But the letters we've sent, the correspondence we've had, we've operated in good faith. We've tried to get information. All we wanted to do was establish some parameters to negotiate so that we could sit down and say, I'm the chief negotiator for us. Who's your chief negotiator? And then we could sit down and see if we could come to an agreement that was beneficial to all of us, and particularly your kids, okay, which we're all concerned with. We are not here to hurt anyone. We are here to represent a group of people that felt they needed to be represented. Okay? So we tonight brought, because we wanted to show you we're in good faith, a proposal that you can look over at your leisure. Give us a call. We'll set parameters for negotiations. We'll sit down and we'll see how it works out for everybody. I don't want to get off. I've heard the word Teamsters kind of thrown down like we're a bad thing. We are not a bad thing. We represent people for the good of the community, for the company, in this case, your district and the children. So if you would give us an opportunity not to get up on the bad foot we seem to be on here, maybe we can move forward to something that's beneficial and behooves all of us. Okay? I appreciate your time.
Trustee Corker.
So right away, I'm going to tell you my perception of what you just said. When we talked about this at the meeting, we talked about the word negotiation. That's a very coming together word. You are from a Teamsters union that does collective bargaining. That is a position that is very much, as Rob would say, above our pay grade as volunteers. So it immediately puts us into a defensive position where we don't know what you're all about. We know you seem aggressive to us. We know that the word negotiation, at least in my opinion, seemed like a word that was a coming together. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about what is the history here? We have, as board members, don't forget, we have many teachers. We have a few administrators. I'm looking past you, John. I'm not looking at you. We have a situation where we have teachers that feel that they are treated as second-class citizens to the administrators. So that when throwing out a term that was not a legal term to me, the word negotiation was a word in good faith. Let's see how we can get that level of feeling like some of our teachers feel like second-class citizens down and equalize a situation between administrators and teachers where everyone feels that we're working for the same team. So when someone else comes in and it's a very different situation than we know from the teachers, where we know Tringy and we know Marie, and we know that they're out there for the teachers and we're out there representing the public. It's a very different thing, feels very different than when an outside force comes in. It's not a collaboration anymore in the feeling of it. And I think that's what you're seeing here. So I'm just going to give voice to those feelings. We have a lot of constituents. It's not,
Further discussion by the board?
I just have a question about if this ultimately does come to pass, what are our costs that we're looking at? Is there any costs that are associated?
You guys doing it for free?
I assume that 4 of you guys out here is not cheap.
The cost to you for our services is nil. We simply represent the people that we represent, and any payment to us would be over the years through their dues of having us represent them. The cost for our services, quote unquote, to the school district would be zero.
Basically, the way I understand it, because they've unionized, they pay union dues, and those union dues would cover the Teamsters negotiation. The cost to the district would be our cost of getting representation to negotiate with the Teamsters.
Okay.
Unless you want to sit here and
unless
be
we
a
get it
negotiating team with these gentlemen. I'm going to upgrade from fellows.
Well,
Dr. Holmes.
Let's just look at it like our costs when we're negotiating with the Teachers Association. That's 4 full days. We start midday on one day and go into the evening, and the next day we go all day, and then we do it again the next week. So that's 4 full days of pulling people out of classrooms. So it'd be 4 days of pulling people out of buildings and having us there. And if you guys all want to do it together, it'd be all of you giving up 4 full days to be there. Or you can do it like you've done it with the teachers and say we want to do interest-based bargaining. We meet ahead of time and decide what our parameters are, and you send your representative with myself to go to the table and participate in interest-based bargaining or collaborative bargaining or whatever you want to, whichever method you want to use. But there are always costs in the fact that it is time and attention on behalf of the district to make this happen.
Trustee Corker.
Thank you. I think that we need more data, and data decreases stress. And I'd like to know what the teachers want in terms of comparables. I want to know, when I look at it in a logical point of view, what has happened over the years to their salaries, to administrators' salaries, what happened with benefits, that kind of thing. I want to know more. I want to have more information at my fingertips and then go in to a meeting with that information so that I know what I'm looking at. Is there a divergence in fairness where one side does feel that it's being treated unfairly, and is that backed up? And possibly the administrators feel like they've been treated unfairly. I want to know. I want to know how the teachers feel. And I want to come to a group decision on what, because we're ultimately, as George Bush said, the deciders at this table, and everyone has a point of view. And they're in the middle is the truth.
Well, it's too bad you weren't at our last meeting, because actually this was part of the conversation at our last meeting. We had this, was on the agenda, and I said to the group that this whole negotiation thing appeared to me to be becoming a can of worms. It was going to open up, and that we didn't really have the skill set as a group to really manage the things that you said. And unfortunately, at this level, that request you've just made falls on us or some outside third party. We can't go to administration and say, get this data for us. would you guys do that for us? That's really not going to work if that's the group we're negotiating with. I don't think we can really go to them and get that information. So, as a group, to position ourselves with the information you want to have, we have to hire somebody from the outside, or the four of us have to roll our sleeves up and get that data. That's how this is going to work moving forward, which is why I was in the office between the last meeting and this one, to have some sense of what salary scheduling would be. Has any work been done? And I was able to at least ferret some of that stuff out and understand that. But that's really the landscape that we're sitting in. So it's great to say we need data and we need that, but what you're saying is we, plus 4, and hopefully number 5 next week, have to do that work.
Trustee Corker.
We have, actually, I think that we have a perfectly good teachers union on one side, and we have a group of administrators. Apparently, and I'm not meaning to pit any group against any group, but certainly there's a vetting process that can go on there in terms of looking at data and saying, yes, but what about this? This issue was originally brought to us by the union, the teachers union, I'm saying. And we said, okay, we're not going to ignore what we just heard. Those seem like valid points. So what I'm perfectly capable of asking questions, and facts are facts. So when I want the teachers union to be involved, I want the administrators to be involved. However that happens, everyone gets their questions answered. That creates more information. And if I have a question, I can then use that data to. I don't think it's as complicated. And I think that the way that's borne out is this is the first time it's even coming up in the state of Idaho. Everyone else seems to be able to do this just fine.
Further questions, comments by the board? I go back to those 3 points then. Who? How? When?
There's a why in there, too.
Yeah. Dr. Holmes.
Well, and first of all, are you negotiating or not? Because if you're having the Teachers Association at the table, you're no longer negotiating. Just like if you're now having a conversation between different entities, which you can have, but you're no longer negotiating. Just like when the teachers negotiate, if they want to put on their list of things that are interests for them is full family medical, they have a right to do that. They didn't do that last time, but they have a right to do that if that's one of their interests. So the first thing is, are you negotiating or not?
That was my initial question.
Up to board discussion.
So I think I would like to have I would like to have everyone participate. I think it's that level. If someone doesn't feel like participating, that's fine. But I think it should be open to every board member. That's the who. And it should be open to the teachers have representatives who are very well informed. If they want to pick other representatives, they can choose to do what they want. To me, the administrators can choose to do what they want without outside representation, as we have chosen to do.
So you're rescinding the negotiations part?
No, my meaning, I mean, maybe, like I said, I'm not a lawyer. What I'm trying to do is negotiation is a discussion of different points of view, negotiating for fairness. And obviously we have different constituencies who think some things are fair and some things aren't fair. And so getting everyone together and finding out, well, what are the facts on this? What, immediately came to light for me was that there was a separate situation in terms of family medical and individual medical in Blaine County that did not exist in any other school district. That's when you get that feedback from Marita at the table or people like that, and there's a feeling of they want us to know that, and they don't want us to ignore that, and so I think that they want a voice, and I know the administrators want a voice, and I think those voices should all be honored.
From my perspective, I felt like at the time, and still feel now, that at that April meeting, that was a very knee-jerk reaction. And I am a firm believer that the best decisions are not made by a knee-jerk reaction, but a systematic, planned-out approach. I feel like a negotiation is a knee-jerk reaction. I feel like a discussion and options for the future without holding people penalized is a much more inclusive, much better systematic approach rather than the knee-jerk reaction of negotiation, especially when terms that were used in April were shared pain, cuts. And so I feel like that discussion needs to be collaborative and joint, not as a negotiation, but as a discussion.
Semantically, I think that the word negotiation means to me discussion. So maybe that's what the problem is. So let's call it, if you want to call it a discussion, that's fine. As far as the word cuts, we were talking about cuts to positions. We were talking about cuts to programs. We were talking about cuts to after-school programs. We were talking about cuts to summer school. So we were talking about cuts.
We were talking about cuts for
along.
The budget, but we were also, in the motion was brought up, cuts to salary and benefits of the administrators. If you do salary and benefits of the administrators cuts without cutting teachers or classifieds, you're opening yourself up to liabilities because you're treating one class of people different. And we are not in a financial emergency.
I don't
And
recall.
that
I don't.
riff.
Let's get that into this discussion. Let's not, because that could be, that we might hear a different legal opinion on that. I'd like to get that part of the discussion. I think we're going into very specific areas.
I don't want to render a shotgun opinion
Okay,
on that
that's fine.
without studying it.
I don't know that we did talk about cutting salaries right away. I know that I was mostly concerned about some of the benefits that were being received that were not comparable to what the teachers receive. That was a big concern of mine back in April. I do not consider saying, okay, we're going to cut salaries right away. That was something that was more like, these are things that we can discuss, but not necessarily we're taking. I did have more of a firm position on those benefits.
So I go back to negotiations. Is it going to be a negotiation? Is it going to be a discussion with our administrators?
I feel like we have like a kind of consensus that we want to have like these discussions, not actual negotiations. But I know that we're not voting on anything. But
No action can be taken in a work section.
I think the word discussion is fine. You know, that's basically what I meant, is getting everyone to the table who feels that they want a voice. And that includes teachers, and that includes administrators, and that includes everyone. Because when you have a time of looking at cuts, which is what we were looking at, all voices should be heard. And I think that needs to happen. And what I kept saying is that all options have to be on the table. No one is protected in this. Nobody gets special treatment. Everyone gets a voice.
I would like to have a voice.
You get the stick.
In the last meeting, Trustee Clayton talked about coming up with a salary schedule. And in our research, I'm not making suggestions, I'm just telling you, they're already out there that have been approved by the state of Idaho, the school board. We, as an exhibit in our first proposal, included that from West Ada County with the caveat of cost of living adjustment using Department of Commerce statistics that the legislature uses. It's out there. We will give you copies. I will give copies to your attorney. What your attorney decides to do with them, I'm sure, is amongst you. But we have models out there that can be used, and they are equitable. You spoke about Lakeland and Aspen. That may be how it is in Colorado, but in southwestern Idaho, what you speak of is exactly what's happening in Blaine County. The administrators are paid. In fact, it's a little better benefits package than those up here, and teachers are negotiated separately. Some have only the individual and not family. We have examples of those, too.
We were given a chart, and on that chart, every single school district that was listed as a comparable had equity between health benefits, between teachers and administration, every single school.
Gotcha.
If you're referring to the chart that I gave you, we have great benefits here. It shows our teachers get better benefits than anywhere else, and it shows our administrators get better benefits than anywhere else. They're not equal, but they're better than every other group.
Aspen has full family paid.
I said they're not equal between what our teachers get and our administrators, but our teachers get more than anybody else that we compared ourselves to as far as benefits. Our administrators get more benefits than any other group.
That may be, that wasn't my point. With all due respect, that wasn't my point. My point was equity between teachers and administrators on what benefits they're getting.
And
what medical benefits they're getting.
Right. And
equity.
That chart showed that some districts have equity or equal, whatever you want to call it, and some districts do not. 60% of them have the different, 40% of them, no, 40% of them have a different, 60% have it the same.
Between admin and with classified or certified.
Are you talking about the memo that I did for you?
I'm talking about the where...
This right here?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
6 of the 10 school districts have the same for teachers and administrators. 4 have different.
So health care for the employee paid by the district. Yes. Health care for family paid for by the district. ECSD is yes for administrator, no, basically it's not paid for by the district for family.
Depends on which plan you select.
Exactly, a plan, but still, that's paid for by the employee. So Park City, yes with select plan for administrator, yes with select plan for teacher. Aspen was, because I called them up, yes for family paid by district, yes for administrators, yes for health paid for family by district, for teachers. You can go down the line. Jackson Hole is the exact same. Telluride.
What I was trying to say was the benefit package. I thought you were saying the benefit package was the same in every other district. No, some of them have the same benefit menu, the whole thing, not just health, and some of them have different.
I'm talking specifically about health.
Okay.
Specifically about health, we are the only school district that has a big disparity on administrators get family and teachers do not, and in fact, the more kids you have, we just had a reporter who happens to be in this room who was initially given information that it would only cost teachers $50 more a month, and it's actually a much higher cost. What I get back from teachers, especially those that I just talked to a couple of weeks ago, one with 3 children. That is a huge cost to them. And they look at the administrators and they say, wow, wish I had that. And all other school districts do line up on that. So I think that's a philosophical difference that our school district has that could be on the table. Mm-hmm.
All right, I'll open it back up to the board. Next steps, where do we go from here?
I guess I would say that we should convene again, but I know that our schedules seem to be getting a little bit tight, and it's been a little bit difficult to schedule even other meetings that we need to have, so I don't know. Maybe even tabling those discussions in October? I don't know.
I feel we're totally unprepared to enter into any discussion. I don't think we have any data. We have no facts. We have a couple sheets of paper that pretty much, we have no position as a group, really, honestly. I mean, if you think we do, please refute me. But I think that our position to even bargain would be, is kind of weak, and I'm sure if we were in a collective situation, the guys would be licking their chops over there saying, these guys are not quite ready, you know? And I think that we need to be very careful about how we approach this. I think that we need, I'm liking hearing what you have had to say about a collaborative approach to this, and I think the collaborative approach needs to be probably staged a little bit, because I think we have developed somewhat a degree of animosity between us as a group and the administrative team of the district, to a degree, is fair to say. I think that it's not all love and fuzz. I think there's a little bit of like push and shove, and I think we have to get past that.
For the record, I'll give you a hug, John.
I think we've got to get past that, and I think that's a conversation that needs to happen. I think we need to have a conversation, and we need to be frank, and I think we need to hear what they have to say, and I think they've heard what we've had to say because they listen to us, right? But I don't know if we've necessarily listened to what they've had to say collectively as a group and what their position is. They could be represented in that conversation, or they could be themselves in that conversation. I don't know if they're on the hook to be represented or not. We're not on the hook for anything. We can actually rescind what we've said, I believe. We can say, we're not going to negotiate. We're going to talk to you. We're going to come up with something. Here's what we're going to present to you. Here's how it's going to go. So my inkling or my feeling would be to definitely take a look at what you guys voted on in April and maybe not have that vote stand any longer, or revisit that vote and see where you want to go. That's my recommendation to you, because, like I said, I wasn't part of that vote or conversation.
I would tend to agree with that. Trustee Corker?
I think it's a lot more simple than all of this. I think that we have a discussion with the teachers. We hear their frustrations. I think we have a discussion at the same table with the administrators. We hear their fears, and we get in a circle and we figure it out. And there's a fairness in between, because right now there are people in this district. It's not just between us and the administrators. We're a fork in between teachers and administrators, and that's how this all started. And so, how do we make this situation fair? And so we need all parties in the room to be able to hash it out and say, fair is fair. I'm going to give a little, you're going to give a little, and that's what's got to happen. It's really easy, I think. I mean, I really don't think it's that hard.
Are you negotiating with teachers too? I'm lost.
I want the perspective of teachers. I want the perspective of teachers as to how do they feel about what they're getting in terms of the pie, in terms of what's going on. If they perceive inequities, which I hear that they do, and I can see that there are, and I think that it's important for the administrators to hear what we hear. I don't want it to stop with me. I think it's a much wider discussion, and that's the only breakthrough that we're going to have, is if we get three parties at the table.
Trustee Clayton.
I mean, I can see what you're saying about the teachers, and actually that is a non-complicated part because they already do have an association. They do have representation. Their representation can represent them in that conversation. That's no problem, right? I think that's easy. I think the way you phrased it makes it a little more vague, like the teachers need to talk. Well, no, they have an association. They have two representatives. They've elected those people. That's how this process should work from their perspective, I believe, because those two representatives should be the voice of the entire association. If there's people within that association that don't think they're being treated fairly, that's their problem. They voted to be part of that. If there's a group who's not part of the association, maybe they can pick a person to talk to, right? Because I think there are some non-association members as well. So that covers that one, bring them to the table. But I think the biggest concern that we should address is the concern that we really have and try to develop a really quality, professional, engaged relationship with the administration of the district as a board, and really figure out how we work together. Use this is like maybe not the coolest situation right now, but this is a real opportunity at the same time to kind of fix the way things are going and make this a better, stronger district for the participants in our school program. That's, I mean, we're so far off of what is important for my kid in her class with Marie tomorrow that I'm really not worried about it. You know, I'm worried about her getting an A in her class, right? Is this helping her get an A? Not really feeling it right now. This is something that's way beyond that, and something that we really need to cohesively unite as a group. And this, yeah, I'm seeing the opportunity. I'm actually hearing you speak that opportunity too, so I'm appreciative of that. I have no more to say.
I feel much like the perceived dysfunction of the board. I believe there's a perceived dysfunction between the board and the administration as well. And I feel that just as the board needs that unification, I believe that that administration board team needs that unification for the betterment of the district, for the betterment of our students' education. I believe that contentious, confrontational exercises is only going to bring detriment to our students long term. That's not all I have to say about that.
So can we make a motion tonight to rescind this thing?
You're at a work session. You can't.
Cool.
So, Mr. Black.
I think Ms. Corker brings up a valid point. Really, we feel fortunate to be here tonight with representation. The fact is the teachers do have a union, they do organize, and they collectively bargain for their interests. So the teachers get to come to you and talk to you about their interests. We do not. We do not. We simply receive what the board approves or does not approve. Now, we are in the position where we are today, not because we've negotiated to be where we are today. It is what was provided to us when we took the jobs. And that comes with several advanced degrees to get to that point, to get that compensation. But we didn't negotiate that compensation. So when we're talking about coming and discussing and have an open discussion and actually talking about it and getting the opportunity to be represented, to come to you as a group and actually discuss our concerns, the teachers don't represent us in any way, shape, or form, and we don't represent the teachers. So this was an opportunity for us to actually come to you as a collective body on our own behalf and have an open discussion with the board. That's really why they're here. That's why this is all this is happening. I've gone over a lot of the documents. It's to try and start with a very reasonable point, and then, of course, negotiate, talk about it, discuss it. What's good, what's not good, where can we reach a compromise? But this really doesn't involve teachers. I'm not negotiating on part of the teachers. The teachers aren't negotiating on part of me. They have a process where they can come to you if they want full medical. They can ask for that. No problem. But it was communicated that, you know, there were things that administration needed to be concerned about, and they were all very concerned. But then you open the door for us to come to the table and have that open discussion. We saw that as a great opportunity to have an open discussion. Now we're saying, no, we're not going to discuss it, and we're going to do whatever we want to you at any time in the future. That's, I mean, I know it's scaring 22 people in this room greatly, and so I would hate to negate a great opportunity.
Well said.
I think that just went like 180 for me, because the way that I was thinking about it was that this was and as I said in the first place, when I used the word negotiation, I meant discussion. Negotiation to me means, okay, there's some kind of vested interest at the table. It's a discussion about a vested interest. So it was, to me, an opportunity. We even talked about the fact that had never happened. You guys had never had a voice. So the issue for us as board members is we've got two different voices at the table here. And we've got a perception on the majority of our members represented by at least one comment that we heard publicly, that there are benefits and things that administration gets that teachers don't get, and there is that needs to be talked about. So that's where I'm saying I see no downside whatsoever to getting everyone together to say we're all on the same team here. And that's where I feel that if you take that step and the union takes that step, that there's a place for us to listen as a board. I'm saying the teachers union.
And I guess that's where I'm not understanding the teachers union's role in this. I agree with discussing the benefit package, whatnot, is brought to the attention. But that's really a discussion between your administrative team and the board. And you open that avenue to have those discussions. And that's why I think that's a golden opportunity. But for us to have the teachers negotiating...
They're not negotiating, they're discussing.
Well, I don't understand their presence at the table. I mean, we don't have a union president on the other side of their table arguing administrative benefits or administrative lack of contracts against teacher contracts. It just doesn't make sense. It seems to me that is a movement in the wrong direction in pitting two groups against each other. I think the teachers have the opportunity to negotiate on their behalf, and we appreciate the opportunity, finally, for the first time since in my 33-year career, to have the opportunity to negotiate with the board and talk about things. So I think there are two different discussions, but that's just my
I would agree with John to that degree, because I was part of the interest-based bargaining with the teachers. And during that process, this came to light. It was part of the process, was what's the administrative benefit package and how does it relate, and that was pretty well shut down immediately within that interest-based bargaining, because it had nothing to do with the bargaining of the teachers. It was a comment about administration, but that was not part of the teachers commenting about administration didn't have any value in that environment, because that wasn't what they were doing. They could ask for the things, just as Dr. Holmes said. They could throw that on the board as this is my interest, I want that. Is it going to pass or not pass? That, which was the beauty of that system. They could do that for sure, but the correlation or comparison was not part of the conversation. So I see what John's saying about this. No different in terms of if they're in the room. I mean, that the teacher's interest in the administration, it can be stated, but it's not part of that negotiation, because that's not the compensation package of the teachers. It's a compensation package of the administration that's being determined in that setting. The feelings are more than welcome, right? Commentary is more than welcome. But as far as actual negotiation, they're not really party to that negotiation, because that's not affecting their livelihood.
I would agree with that statement after participating in the previous year in that interspace bargaining with the teachers union.
You know, we had a comment from the head of the teachers union, and we've heard from, well, various of us have heard, and we can see on the charts where there are differences that make this school district not feel sometimes like a team. And so
Well, I respect that, and I
Right.
think that's good information for us as board members to go into, knowing that. I just don't believe that voice has a place at the table.
So I think that also the administrators can come up just like the teachers do. I don't know how they do it. I don't know whether they vote. I don't know whether it's just, oh, let her do it and let her do it. But get some representatives out of your it's a lot easier. No. Because we don't have representatives. I'm saying within you, we talk directly with 2 teachers who are not paid. So if you want to do that, we're not paying people to speak for us, right? So if you want to do that, do it. Go and pick a couple of people and have them represent you.
Is that horse already out of the barn, though?
And that's what I was
I mean,
trying to get.
if everybody agrees.
That's what I was trying
That
to
horse
get to
running,
with
isn't
a
it?
committee of partial board, partial administrators, to have those discussions, not negotiations. Because once you throw out the term negotiations, then that opens the door for representation, as long as the board is represented. Mr. Blackman.
In reaching out to these gentlemen and their expertise, it's no different than the teachers. The teachers have lawyers, they have IEA representatives that do nothing but represent the union that they go to for advice. And even though they're at the table with us, they are backed by Paul Stark, their attorney, and they bring that information to the table, their lawyers' opinions on certain things. They will leave the table to ask their lawyer questions. So they have that kind of expertise in their background. It just made sense that we approach that from the same type of process. So we've never had a union. We've never belonged. There's never been any union representation. We've never had to. We've never been in this situation. And so, I mean, when you don't know what we're doing, we've never been unionized. We've never been together as a group. So we reached out to somebody who had expertise in that area. It wasn't to threaten or strong-arm anybody. It was simply, we don't know what we're doing either. And this is the first time in Idaho it made sense to do exactly what the teachers do and reach out to their professionals to help them through the process. So whether they're at the table or not doesn't mean we can't go to them for advice and then be at the table. But it's not about combative. Like I said at the beginning, we're not asking for anything here. We're willing to come to the table and talk and listen to your justifications and why you think things should be one way. But we hope, and what we're hopeful for, is you've given us the opportunity to voice our concerns. Because before you had that vote, you didn't have to do that. And so we saw that as a major opportunity for us to actually come to the table and have a discussion with the board and actually have someone listen to our concerns.
Trustee Corker.
With all due respect, John, I have never seen the head of the Idaho Education Association at this table or in any way, shape, or form being the voice of, maybe I'm wrong, but that's what's going on here. And it feels very different. I'm not sure that it was your approach. You thought about it, and that was the approach you chose. It's not the approach that the teachers choose, and I think that it seems like it seems very different.
You should probably join me in HR sometime.
No, I'm sure you talk to lawyers in the background.
We talk to the head of the IEA all the time.
They have a lot of course, they have a lot of support. That's different than what's going on tonight.
My recommendation would be, we as a board, from what I'm understanding, we're not interested in going out third party and getting someone else to negotiate for us. What I'm hearing is we as a board want to have those discussions with our administrators. Maybe we pose a question to our administrators if they're willing to have those discussions with the board. They can have the Teamsters in their background, much like the union officials do. We have Adam King and Amy White, who we can call for references as well to fact check and different things like that. But to sit down with, I go back to a committee of administrators, and I honestly feel full board participation is going to be extremely difficult, and you're going to turn it into a very long, drawn-out process. I would recommend streamlining the process with a or a couple board members and a few of the administrators with the superintendent, form that committee and have that discussion. That is my recommendation. And if the board, if there's consensus, I would recommend we see if there's consensus with the administration to have those types of discussions.
I think that it should be anyone on the board who wants to be part of that discussion.
I'm good with that. I mean, whoever wants to participate, participate. I mean, I think it's healthy. I'm okay with that. Just don't hold up the process. If you're going to be one of those people, be there when it's time.
Is that consensus with the board?
I would think so. As long as we can be there anytime we choose. Schedules permitting.
I don't know if we direct to the Teamsters or...
Well, I just have one final question. If in fact you went through that process you just mentioned, unless you renegotiate every single one of their contracts, giving them above and beyond what they already have, otherwise there's no reason to renegotiate it, and you look at the system as a whole for their benefits, are you not in fact collectively bargaining agreement at the moment? Is it not the same difference?
That's a great question.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think it's contentious. I think that's what Tim's getting at, is the perception of the Teamsters is, you know, people would have broken kneecaps later. That's not us. That's from the
You're gentle, I'm
30s
getting
and
that.
40s. That's, you know, when Henry Ford would hold guns on.
And that, when we do the interspace with the teachers, we know them, we interact them, we have that relationship, and we use that as a building relationship and a unification. No offense, I hope to never see you again. But you
Understood.
Mr. Chairman, could I have a sidebar with our attorney, and then maybe we'll give you I know you can't take any action tonight, but we'll give you a way forward.
We will go ahead and recess at 9:02.
John just told me he's already sensitive. She's in a hostile situation.
All they got to do is flip back plane section. It's 331272. I probably really like him. You might even like him. But we're on different sides right now.
Fascinating. Thank you guys for coming. Thanks, Rob. Wayne Brown. Wayne? Great. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. I thought so. Yeah. Which is fascinating. I get it.
Isn't it though? I would sit somewhere else, but
Oh, like you sitting there.
Yeah.
I'm liking all of it. It's fascinating. This role is fascinating. I'm an old guy and I'm learning so much from doing this.
It's all good.
It's cool. Yes. Yankees are on a tear. I'm a Yankees fan.
Who's up?
Yankees beat the Dodgers. We're on a roll. We were like out of it. In July we were out.
Yeah, I kind of wondered about that. We should. All right, I'll go ahead and call this meeting back to order. We took a recess at 9:02. It is now 9:11.
Sorry about that. I'll repeat that now that I have my mic on. We took a recess at 9:02. It is now 9:11. I'll go ahead and call this work session back to order and turn the time over to Dr. Holmes.
Thank you. I just wanted to have a quick chat with our attorney to make sure that we would not be in violation of open meeting law if the board decided to have an executive session at the next meeting to try to hammer out some of the details for negotiations. And Mr. King concurred with my reading of the reasons that you could go into executive session, and one of them was for labor negotiations, correct?
And that would be an executive session of the board members for our basic stance towards that, my understanding.
When are we doing that? Are we doing that tonight?
No.
No.
You have to notice it first,
Okay.
and you didn't notice
Great.
it, so not tonight.
Run out of gas.
My recommendation
Thought so.
in thinking of a plan and a structure would be at the end of the October meeting, where we would potentially have a fifth board member, as well as have that discussion, and then come out and take any action after that. Notice correctly at the end of the executive session agenda, action if necessary, something like that, however we phrase that, to make sure that we are compliant with open meeting law.
And prepared to move forward.
Yep. And that would be I would tend to agree with Dr. Holmes and with Mr. King that I think really the board needs to get our solid position on direction and then move forward. Trustee Corker.
I have two recommendations. The first is that that executive session would be contingent on a new board member being on the board, because I think that strengthens us, and this is a very big issue. And my second recommendation is that before that happens, we have a meeting of whoever administrators want to participate, whatever teachers want to participate in a discussion of what precipitated this this issue and talking about what's going on in terms of what precipitated this issue.
Well, my 2 cents We said that we would be negotiating in October. I think we need to have that executive session regardless of whether we have a fifth board member or not, because we either are or are not going to continue down that path, but the record has been stated in October, so that either needs to happen in October or there needs to be a different motion that comes forward to rescind that. My second point is I go back to, if we are going to go into those discussions with our administrators, we as board members can have that input of how teachers feel, but they don't have a place at that table.
I think she's saying that she wants the input prior to.
Okay.
And I'm okay with that. That's okay.
It's a discussion.
They're just...
Yeah.
You can make a motion for that at the next meeting.
Yeah. So that would... Do I hear consensus about that? Seeing as how we cannot take official action at a work session.
You have to take action at the next meeting.
Ms. LaChance, would you mind noting that for the October agenda?
We don't want to. We just don't want to botch any open meeting laws. That's not cool.
And tell me again what the sense, the urgency is that we can't wait a month or two. I'm just
because we mentioned that we would be in our motion. We said we would be negotiating in October. If we wait and we don't have a fifth board member in October and we wait until a later date, we are not fulfilling our end of our motion.
You know, I think that this is a very big topic. I want to make sure that all voices are being heard at the table, and I want to make sure that that who's ever honoring the and hearing the administrators is able to hear them.
I think that's all good, but unfortunately, I think that the horse is out of the barn, so to speak, for the representation that the administrators have. And now that they are represented, and we stated that we have a date of negotiation, and we're not compliant with what we stated, we could have a problem on our hands. I don't know if you guys want to answer that question for me, but I'm kind of sensing that there's a whole different playing field in front of us now because of what I'm going to say you voted for in April.
I'm confused. What I heard before was that unless we get an outside force to represent us, the administrators are not bound to get an outside force, or not allowed. I don't know what the terminology there would be. That's what I understood at the beginning of this meeting. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, to eliminate that confusion, the administrators have joined the Teamsters. So that means that they have a group of representation themselves. They are currently represented. That's not going backwards. We need to understand that as a group. Am I correct in saying that? Are you engaged? Are you guys engaged by the administrative group?
I didn't understand that at the beginning of this
No,
meeting whatsoever.
Where's that groundwork? I'd like to
So
know
the
that.
statute that I was reading from is that is applying to teachers, which Amy White told us apply to administrators, since there aren't statutes written specifically to administrators. They have a right to organize. And the people who then represent them at the table, as long as they are representatives of that organization and are employees, then it's us and the superintendent. So they're an organization already. That's done.
Yes.
So who will be sitting at the table talking to us will depend on who we put at the table talking to them. Just like when the Teachers Association bargains with us, they have all the right in the world to consult with other people from their organization when we take the breaks. Remember how we take the breaks?
They did that. Yeah, I got that.
So, but the people actually sitting at the table talking will depend on who we put at the table talking.
If we hire an outside firm, they hire an outside firm, is the way I quickly...
If we hire an outside firm, then the Teamsters could be represented at the table as their legal counsel or however they do it. Got it. But we do understand that they're part of it.
So this is the point that I was trying to get to earlier in the discussion, and I apologize for going about that inappropriately. If you wouldn't mind turning back to 331272, that actually discusses this specifically. Professional employee means any certificated employee, et cetera, superintendents, supervisors, or principals are excluded from the professional employee group for the purposes of negotiation.
For the teachers.
It's just
This applies to teachers, Chapter 12 teachers.
Right, but it also uses the term.
So go back to the next one.
It uses the term certificated employees and
Go back to the next one.
Personnel.
And upon the recommendation of Amy White, under the same Chapter 12 teachers, 1273, clearly states who's at that table.
If it were the teachers, but these are not the teachers. They are the administrators and are specifically exempted by 1272, which means that we can't.
So basically, there's no code, and we can do what we want until we're proven differently in court, is what the actual legal ramifications are. So until that happens, we will be following what Idaho code
Says about teachers.
Says about teachers, what exists.
We are in uncharted territory.
Agreed.
Yes. But there is a distinction made between certificated employees and professional personnel.
Duly noted.
They can't belong to the same group. That is
Yeah,
correct.
they cannot belong to the teachers union. We understand that.
Sign me up for the ISBA conference. This will be hot.
Okay. So in October, would you please put on the agenda at the end of the regular meeting an executive session for item.
I put that
She'll
away.
look it up
G?
again.
Is it item G?
I'm sorry, in the code?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. The code section is,
J.
I'm sorry, yeah, it's 74-2061J.
J.
Following which, and Mr. King, you might have to help us phrase that, I don't think official action, if necessary, quite cuts it. What's, for an item on the agenda following that executive session?
Action if appropriate.
We'll clean that language up, but, and that action, go ahead, Trustee Corker.
So I want to know, when does the discussion happen with teachers and with administrators getting together just to have an open-ended discussion? That was my point, and I feel that I wanted to happen first.
That would have to be a motion at that October meeting.
At which October meeting? The executive session?
After the executive
Before.
session.
You could do it before or after, wherever you put it on
Well,
the agenda.
Why can't we,
You can call a special meeting.
yeah, right now.
You just have to get, well,
But that goes back to my point, that
Can't take action out of this.
we can't take action tonight. And if you're including teachers in the beginnings of a negotiation with the administrators, that kind of makes that executive
let me
session.
clarify. If something's not on the agenda, you can amend the agenda if there's a good faith reason for amending the agenda, okay, under all circumstances. The other thing you can do, and so you can amend the agenda tonight if you get a good faith reason to do so and the motion to amend the agenda passes, and then you could have an action item to start these, or to propose these conversations. The other thing you could do is you could schedule a special meeting, and the special meeting is scheduled on 24 hours notice. So, I can't see the clock because of glare. You could schedule a special meeting as early as 9:30 tomorrow night, technically, or some of the, I'm just telling you what the code, the parameters of the code. So those are your two options. The third option would be to wait until your next regular meeting.
And the reality is to schedule a special meeting is strictly because there would be four of us instead of one of us. And you can't get four of us together to talk to people without noticing those events. Correct?
You would need, you need to take some action. You can only take action by amending the agenda tonight, scheduling a special meeting, or waiting until your regular October meeting.
You've got a request from a trustee for an action to happen, but you can't move on it tonight.
Right.
My understanding was that it takes two board members to suggest a special meeting, and then there's a vote on that. Is that right?
No.
It takes two?
No. A
To put an
special
item on.
meeting is simply, the clerk typically takes a poll, can we get a quorum together? When can we do it? If everybody says, I'll be there, not everybody, if a quorum says, I'll be there, then the clerk simply notices it and the meeting occurs.
Okay, so can we do that now?
You could talk about having a special meeting.
Sure,
It's
that's
not
what I'd
taking
like to
action.
do.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I'd like to do.
And scheduling matters are not within the open meeting laws anyway, so you can always talk about scheduling.
Okay. So yeah, because we're all here, we're all at the table, we might as well wrap it up. I would like to have a special meeting where we hear from all sides, and we get all points of view at the table so that the board is able to integrate different points of view.
But you haven't taken that action. You have to have a special meeting of the board to make that action.
We can't say we're going to do that. We need to have a special meeting to put that motion forward, establish that, then action that, and then the meeting, that what she's prescribing can then happen. Have I got this one right?
I have to disagree. A trustee can propose a special meeting, and the agenda of the special meeting would be X. At that time, since it's been noticed, you can take that action X. Okay?
Okay.
So a trustee could propose a special meeting to put a roof on, buy a roof for the Blaine County swimming pool. That's not an action item to talk about that special meeting. At that meeting, that would be the action item. Does that make sense?
Yes, got it.
So Trustee Corker is, if I understand, proposing a special meeting to discuss X. If there's a quorum and if it's noticed properly, you can discuss X and take action on X at that meeting.
Or just as long as the action is
Yeah.
is posted.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah,
proposing.
yeah. If it's properly noticed, it's on the agenda. That's the action.
That's what I'm proposing. And I that's exactly what I'm proposing. So I don't know if we can, we've got now an executive session after the October, at the end of the October meeting. Possibly we can have a 1 hour or whatever, half an hour, whatever time limit we want to put on it, special meeting before that to hear various points of view that we as a board hear in various pockets, but together in a special meeting before we go into the executive session. I think that would clarify for us what we're doing in terms of negotiation, discussion. It would help to lay, that was the genesis of this entire process that is now rolling forward, is that we had teachers that were concerned about inequities. We now have administrators that are concerned about things being taken away. So I'd like to have a special meeting before the executive session to have a discussion with whatever teacher representatives that the union or non-union wants to come up with, and whatever representatives the administration wants to come up with, to have an open-ended discussion and not my view of it is open-ended discussion. What are we talking about here? What got us to this place?
When you say union, do you mean teachers union or Teamsters union for the administrators?
Yeah, thank you. I mean who representatives, if the administrators want to choose some people, if they want everyone to be in the room. I don't know. I think we should talk about that. We could talk about that right here. I mean, it could be a cast of thousands, which I don't think would accomplish much. So perhaps 3 administrators, 3 teachers.
I'm not sure I understand a three-way negotiation.
It's not a negotiation, it's a discussion. As you were saying before, it's a discussion so that we can talk about what is going on with various points of view in terms of...
But I thought the discussion was around administrative benefits.
The discussion is about whatever it's going to be about. And that's that in terms of, we heard from Marie that there was concern about feeling as if there was inequity, right? And then there's concern, at least I'm hearing tonight, from administrators that they were afraid that there were going to be immediate cuts. That's what's on the table. Is a discussion about what led to this point.
We already know that.
What is it?
The teachers brought it that they feel that there's inequities.
Okay.
So now there's a discussion between the board and the admin on what those inequities are and what should be done about them. But I don't understand why you're now pitting teachers against administrators to negotiate against each other. This is a discussion between the board and the administration as put forward by the board.
That's where I think that there's a wider issue here, and that's what I would like to see in the beginning come out. And I'm not going to be the voice of the teachers. I'm not going to be the voice of the administrators. Only the administrators and the teachers can be their own voice, right? And I would like to be I would like to be able to see that. We've never had a workshop like that. You could call it a workshop.
Well, we're talking about interests. We're talking about taking away or maintaining the interests of the administration. Why is that the decision of the teachers union and not the board?
There's not a decision to be made here. We're having an open-ended discussion, John. That's all I'm talking about, is an open-ended discussion. And to be able to get, so it's not confrontational, so it's an understanding that you come to of what's going on. How are they feeling? How are you feeling? And that's important to understand. And I think that there is a big misunderstanding right now, and I think that that's what has led to a feeling, as you said, of being pitted. And I think that if we don't have that discussion, people feel pitted.
Dr. Holmes.
Would you want a mediator? I mean, how are you going to facilitate this meeting?
That was
That's
my
a good question. That's a good question. Tammy, I haven't heard from you practically.
Well, this is all, because I've never been on the teachers' negotiations or any of that, so this is very new, so I'm just taking it all in. My feeling is that it would be nice to hear from the teachers, but maybe in a different kind of format than what you're suggesting. Maybe we could have more of like a public comment. Maybe we can encourage them to coming in for public comment. Or emailing in their concerns to Amanda to be distributed to all of us. Because I do understand the administrator side of it and feeling like, why are the teachers in on this? I do think everybody's opinion is valuable, and it would be nice to hear everybody's opinion on these things and hear their concerns so we can look at it from all directions. But maybe not necessarily in that kind of format.
I would tend to agree with Trustee Bustos that, if we're talking about discussions about and negotiations about administrative salaries and benefits, that discussion needs to be happening with them. We can use teachers' input as information for us, but that discussion happens between the two sides right there, not branching out. And I would tend to agree that if teachers feel so inclined to either email or make public comment, that's fine, that's great, but I don't foresee the need of another meeting.
I think you could even go as far as asking the teachers in preparation for spring negotiations what are areas of concern for them in their compensation package. It never hurts to know what they are concerned about and try to prepare to be able to be as responsive as possible to that. I mean, if that's the kind of input you want. I assume, I don't have verification of this, but I assume their association usually does that, but why not tell the board what they would like? You don't get everything you always want, but at least you know what their concerns are and how can we work together to try to address some of those.
That's the part that I want. That's the part that I want.
But that's asking teachers.
But that's a separate side.
Instead of pitting them against each other.
but that's exactly what I'm talking about. How can we work together to get what we all want? And the only way we can do it, to the way I think about a discussion, is to actually have a discussion. Because if you have it going one way, there's no chance for your word richness. Mm-hmm. You're not hearing all points of view. It's going into one place, and there's no chance to respond in a productive way. That's just my, I feel like we're one school district. I don't pit administrators against teachers I think that there is a common ground, and I think that we have not been able to have a forum for that ever.
Sir.
Just one more question. Should we direct our legal questions to Mr. King or through, I don't remember the name, Amy?
Amanda, the clerk?
Amy White?
Amy White. No,
Continue,
Mr.
King.
Would be first. Yeah.
Very well.
So, from what I'm hearing, Trustee Corker, you would like a meeting. Trustee Bustos and myself would prefer through public comment. Trustee Clayton?
Where am I on this one?
Yep.
Data. Accumulate the data. You want data. You want data from the teachers. However, the best vehicle is to accumulate that data. I think that if we have everybody in the same room, we're not past the point of confrontationality yet here. We're at least trying to make an effort in that regard. I think we're still pretty raw in that subject. I think the way that the teachers brought it up to the administration in the teachers' negotiation was a bit frictional, and I don't think that friction's really gone away. I think the teachers need to have a voice, but I don't think they necessarily have to have the voice at the table with the teachers, with the administration at the same time. I'm willing to listen to the teachers, and they should be willing to talk to us. They should feel open and free to talk to us, and then we take that information and we can use that information in our conversation with the administration. That's how I think it should work.
So data.
It's data. You're looking for data. You're looking for information. You want to know how people feel. We don't need to mend the fences, so to speak, immediately. I think we need to get past this process. This process is underway. We need to address this process. I think in our executive session, we may not have to engage in this process. We can, I don't know where we're going to go there, right? You guys don't know where we're going to go there. I think you know where I'm going to go. But it's like, that's where I think it'll be effective. That's how I view the process moving forward.
What data and how?
Data is like, what's your beef? You want to know what their beef is. Okay, what's your beef? Okay, that's good. Thank you very much for your input. Edmund, what's your beef? Thank you very much. Got it. I'm listening. So I'm taking it in, and then I work it out. It's information. Okay. It's not necessarily, it's not healing. We're not going to be in the healing business yet, right? It's strictly gather the info, manage it, then make a diagnosis, prescribe the cure, and fix it.
So I'm hearing no additional meeting. Is that mine? Just simple terms.
But okay.
Works for me.
How is that disseminated? What language goes out to, for example, administrators, teachers? How does that happen? What are we asking of them?
What information are you desiring?
Are you asking me that?
Yes, I am asking you that.
I'm asking you that.
I've got it. I was in the negotiation. I know that the teachers are unhappy with the benefit package the admin has. I know that. That's a fact. That's my data. I'm very clear on that. I understand that's how they feel. Do I have an answer for that? Not yet, but I'm going to move towards it through the process. I know that's the problem.
Okay.
Is there more layers to it? I don't know. We could send out a questionnaire to them. Here's a problem. Is there more problems than this? Can you please give us your feedback? That's how
Okay. So, for example, we would like to hear your comments about
administrative benefits.
I would ask them, what benefits do they want?
That's a
do
positive
they want
approach, sure.
in their compensation package?
Administrative benefits.
Or what do you feel you're lacking in your in your
In your
benefit package? Or what would you like to see
in your compensation?
compensation?
Because it's all one big package.
Yeah.
It's just rearranging what side of the line you put it on.
Okay, I mean, this is where the
Is that
rubber
something
meets the
that you
road
can
as far as what we're
send
going to
out
ask them.
Well, we can, but I doubt if we get good results.
We would like to hear your comments about,
I mean, I'm like I said, I'm comfortable. I would be glad for you, craft whatever questions you would like and have Amanda distribute them. I think
Okay.
that's totally good.
Okay.
And that would help settle you with what
Okay.
questions you have.
Okay.
And then if you're getting that feedback, that's great. Please share with us. I would love to see it.
okay.
And I think that
Well,
would
if it
work
goes
really
to
well.
Amanda, it'll just go to everybody.
Okay, so maybe anybody, board members just put in their
I gave you,
questions.
I mean, would be my question to ask them.
Okay.
And I actually like Dr. Holmes' suggestion of what would you like to see, or, the more positive you can do things, the better, obviously.
Okay, and then the same thing for administrators.
Mhm.
So I'll figure out, my question, if someone else has a little different permutation.
Send it to Amanda.
Send
Okay.
it to Amanda, and we'll get it out, and we'll get those
Okay.
responses back and information for the October board meeting. And we've got that scheduled, so nothing further. Do I hear a motion to adjourn at 9:40?
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Aye.
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 Meeting adjourned, 9:40.